Yo guys, it's me Matrix here, coach of the Welsh Wailords. However, this is coming at you with the new season of UGA Season 3 for the Johto division. We are here doing the draft rankings. With me today, I have got Masenko. Introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Masenko, coach of the Drowsy Dracosults,
We
and
have
I'm
also
one of the
got
players in
Ancient Jedi.
Johto this season.
Hey guys, Ancient Jedi here. I am a reserve coach, but yeah,
And we have
following
got
along this
Bryan.
season.
Say hello, Bryan.
What is up, guys? My name is Bryan. I am one of that Pukido, and I'm your coach of the Charlotte Beedrill. It's a draft team that floats like a
Yes, it's been
Butterfree
too
and
long.
stings like a Beedrill. Man, it is good to say that again. I had to rehearse that a couple of times because that's quite a mouthful. I had to
So
rehearse
yeah,
that a
it's the
couple
four of
times.
us bringing
Feels-
you
it feels
the
okay.
basically a post-draft analysis of the Johto division for season 3. As mentioned, both Bryan and Masenko are playing this season. Myself and AJ are just down as reserves for the season. I've just been a bit busy, so I'm not playing myself. I imagine the same is true for AJ. So yeah, before we get started, do you want to just tell us a bit about yourselves for the rest of the division to know?
Sure. I mean, I've been playing since season 1 of UGA. I did pretty well for the last 2 seasons, came and made playoffs. Haven't won any playoffs yet, but, maybe this season. Yeah, that's kind of me.
I think you
Yeah,
underplayed that massively,
weren't you a
Masenko.
regular season champion last season?
Well, I mean, with some luck and some good RNG on my end, probably.
Nah, not at all.
We'll see.
I'll go quickly. Yeah, I'm AJ. Yeah, been here since season 1, but was part of Johto from season 2. I was a playoff in season 1, but then I can't even remember. Did I finish bottom? I think bottom half of the table in season 2. But like, I guess for VGC experience, like I'm probably like beginner to intermediate. I don't know. I'm still learning. Still learning a lot from you guys, and this is an awesome division with awesome
And
people.
Bryan?
So just glad to be around.
Great. I have been in the Johto division since the iteration of the UGA, so both seasons 1 and 2. Never made playoffs, unfortunately, but both seasons, toward the end, I was in the running, but always just came just a little bit short. I'd say my VGC experience or draft league, I guess I'm maybe more knowledgeable than experienced per se. And hopefully, we'll do a lot better this season.
Hopefully it's your season to get to the playoffs.
I did make the playoffs in the UGA Little Cup Speed Tour, so I got my first toe into draft league
A bit about
playoffs.
myself.
So hopefully we can continue that run.
As most of you guys will know, maybe some new people from the division. I'm Matrix. I play a part of the Welsh Wailords. I've been in the UGA since it started. I've been a moderator for the Johto division and the UGA as a whole since it started as well. I played in season 1 and season 2. I finished second in season 1 in the Johto division. Just failed at the last hurdle to Carmine and his high voltage Magnazones. And then this last season, we were the Johto champions. Managed to finish out pretty well, and then made it to the playoff run for the Grand Champions Tour, which is where all the 8 divisions come together, all the champions, and play in a single elimination bracket. We managed to get to the second round where we got knocked out, but that's fine. We're taking a break this season, letting a load of other new players come in and join us, as well as some returning ones. And speaking of, let's have a look at the roster for this season. So yeah, as you can see here, there's the 16 teams that will be joining us in Johto.
Yes.
We have got some familiar faces: the Crymych Coalossals, the Somerville Scraggies, the Drowsy Dracozols, and the Charlotte Beedrills, as well as some newer faces such as the Pacific Slowbros, the Old English Eiscues, and the Havertown Hoopers. It's going to be an interesting season, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, we've got a good core of Johto veterans, UGA veterans playing in a new division, and then just new draft league battlers in general. We've got a good mix amongst us this season.
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting to see how all these teams have adjusted to some of the newer changes with the tier list to try and make a team. I mean, a lot of these teams are looking a lot different from previous seasons because of how those changes have been implemented.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
That'll be something that we'll have to take into account with our analysis.
Yeah. Yeah, the tiers this season are a little different, and I think that's gonna look really good for the future of the UGA.
Note, before we get into these teams, is that the nature of the tier list has kind of shifted the power levels of all the teams. So you're not getting such top heavy teams, and by top heavy I mean a lot of high tier picks dominating the individual teams draft with all these combos, and like having 6 or so good mons and then a lot of trash tier mons at the bottom half. I think this season we've got a lot of evenly spaced out power level across all the tiers, and it's made the teams a lot more interesting, if anything.
Yeah, definitely.
And we don't have as many of the VGC meta staples in the drafts. I've looked across like all of the divisions. You don't see as many of those like core pairings that you might have seen when we were doing season 1 or season 2.
Yeah, and if people are able to get those pairings, it's very much only that pairing, and then there's mostly just a bunch of other random stuff around it. It's not like you have this pairing and that pairing. You don't get like everything that you'd ever want.
Yeah.
You gotta definitely have to make some sacrifices, some compromises during the draft, which is going to be interesting to see how these teams shape up, especially with the trading policies that are going on.
We'll be doing a weekly not so much draft review, a game review each week on the channel here. Basically, just going over the week and all the matches played and what similar to how we did last season. But with the trading, there's no longer the possibility to trade each week for the teams. Instead, there's like a grace period which will be held straight after basically this video goes live, where teams will be able to do 3 trades to their teams at post draft. Maybe some of the suggestions we make here might help you guys sure out some of the weaknesses of your draft team. Maybe you're unsure. Hopefully this is a little bit insightful. And the other instance as to where you can make trades is during the mid-season break between week 4 and week 5, where there's basically an unlimited amount of trades can be made for your team within this week. So you can shift things around, but it's only this week. There's no other instances to be able to trade during the entire season.
Yeah, you kind of have to. You're kind of committed to the team that you've drafted, but you do get a chance to reevaluate halfway through and see what your team's missing and
so
make changes
anything else
based
to add,
on that.
or shall we get started on the review?
Yeah, I want to give a disclaimer to anybody watching this video. Please understand that we are all here giving our opinions. These are not meant to be hurtful in any way to anybody who we might rank on the lower side. We genuinely want to help everybody who are listening to this video to try and improve their team and improve how they're playing. We have a lot of unique and interesting perspectives on Pokemon in general, and I think the veterans here might have differing opinions. So if you come out of this video confused as to what to do, that's on you. We're all just kind of discussing, right? And I think this is going to be overall helpful for the league. But yeah, just please don't take offense to anything we're saying here. We really don't mean any harm by criticizing or lauding other people's teams compared to yours.
To add on to that, just because we've rated your team low, it doesn't mean that you're going to do that bad at all. You might do like really well. Last season, we collectively as a group rated the South Croydon Soars really lowly, and they were a semifinalist. So don't take our rankings as gospel or written in stone. Like we're predicting that's how you're gonna do.
Yeah, and this is pre-trade as well, so we'll likely put out another video after the trade. But this is just the initial thoughts on like how well you drafted, and doesn't have any sort of implications as to specifically how well you'll do.
Agree.
That's all.
Most importantly, this
well
is
and said.
It's just a fun little thing. It's just to create content for you guys, just to get a little bit of hype around the season. So, as we've all said, don't take it as gospel. So yeah, well said. Okay, so let's get down to what everyone is actually here for, and that is to hear our thoughts about the teams. So we start off with the Crymych Coalossals, which is Dr. Dave. Dr. Dave was a member of the Johto division last season. He finished in, unfortunately, I think it was a 1-9 score in the end. But he was the only team that was actually below 4 wins that finished off the season for us. So mad props to Dr. Dave. He's a great guy, great player. Let's hear what you guys have to say about his team he's picked this season.
Mm-hmm.
I think he got to the finals of the Little Cup off season. Am I right there? So
he's definitely a talented player.
Great guy, I love having him around. Glad he's here for this season.
He's a very creative mind as well. He has like a lot going on up there that, sometimes it falls flat, but a lot of times it'll surprise you. So there's a lot of cool little things here that I see with this team, but I also see some things that I think could use improvement. So
I think he's drafted. I think his draft is a little bit better than I think he's really improved at least in the team composition and drafting. I think he's done a better job of drafting this season than he did last season.
Right. I mean, so let's list some of the good things, right? For this draft. I think first and foremost, he's got some pretty strong powerhouse Pokemon in the form of Rillaboom and Lapras. Gmax. He ended up going for the double S tier point distribution, which ended up limiting his latter half of the draft in terms of what he could pick for the rest of his free picks. And I think he didn't make use of those quite well, but once again, we're talking about the good. So, Rillaboom plus Drifblim is an excellent combo. I think Riolu adds a lot of really interesting utility to the team. I think Salazzle, even Torracat, I don't know if you need both, but both of them are solid, support leads that are fire types with the takeout, with Intimidate on one side, some strong offensive pressure in the form of Salazzle as well.
I think he's got.
What do you guys think?
I think the Lapras is an interesting thing. It's generally kind of a more supportive mon, but I think there are ways he could run it even physical, let alone just as a special attacker or a special mon. I think there are ways he can run physical, like with Riolu with coaching, or I think it gets access to Bullet Punch. So, oh wait, no, that wouldn't be weakness policy, never mind. But definitely like a coaching strat into it would be Vacuum Wave. Yeah, Vacuum Wave would work as a weakness policy proc. So Yeah, there's interesting stuff with the Lapras. I'm really interested in seeing what he does with the Lapras.
Firewater grass core with the Rillaboom, Salazzle, and Lapras. Obviously, when you've got a max candidate like Lapras, which could be firing off max geysers and max resonances, you don't always want a super offensive fire type that'll be nerfed by its rain. So having a really supportive and fast fire type, which just causes disruption and synergizes well with a Gmax Lapras with the fake tears and fake outs and stuff. I think he's got a really strong. That's what I say. I think he's got a really strong fire water grass core there. So yeah.
Completely agree with that one.
If we're moving a little bit off some of the, I really like the Drifblim with the Rillaboom as well. It's a pair that I used in season 1. I saw it used in season 2 by Dr. Day by Bioptic. Now, I don't know if you want to say about some of the things, like some of my other thoughts about the team. Should I just start on with some of
that? Let's talk about what
does AJ think about this team so far? Oh, yeah. We haven't probably.
I'll just quickly, good things. I just mostly what everyone said already. Like some really good like powerhouse Pokemon. There is some method of boosting Lapras, like you say, through Wheaton's policy, coaching, whatnot. The Drifblim Rillaboom is a nice unburden. It's a great combo, we know, but makes use of the unburden and terrain synergy, which I don't think some other teams necessarily do within the league, actually. And yeah, like Salazzle is great at support.
Yeah. And not to mention the Drifblim has such great tailwind setting abilities. Like it's such a consistent tailwind setter because you can't fake it out. And with the Unburden proc, it's going to be hard to like taunt it as well if you are trying to do that. So just like getting some tailwind up for this team seems good. Like definitely Dracozolt appreciates that. Definitely Lapras can appreciate that as well. So overall, just pretty awesome.
That was my highest in terms of the components. We ranked them. Masenko, yeah, speed control was its best.
Oh yeah,
asset here.
Lots of speed control, lots of like disruption and just control in general.
And I know that Riolu gets Prankster Copycat, so there's 2 ways there to be able to shut down the Trick Room, because obviously this team doesn't really want to be fighting in Trick Room. It's not like he's got a Trick Room core. And Trick Room answers aren't the best outside of Fake Out and the Imprison / Copycat, or just straight up KOing the setter, which he does have potential for with that Hustle Dracozolt and all the setup he's got. Some of the other notes that I want to make is I don't quite understand the coughing pick. The reason for that is because it creates this anti-synergy within his team. He's got a lot of mons that rely on their abilities, like the grassy terrain. You've got War Absorb, Shell Armor, Lapras. You've got the Unburdened Drifblim. I mean, Drifblim is literally reliant on its ability, the same as Riolu, reliant on its ability. Dracozolt, which would be a max target with Hustle. Yeah, and Torracat with Intimidate. And it's just like, I feel like the coughing just kind of, although it's a good like D-tier mon, I don't know if it's a good placement on this team. And
I don't hate the coughing. I don't think you have to run it with the neutralizing gas. You can definitely run it as a levitate, just like bulky support mon, with like, clear smog and some other stuff, right? I mean, with an Eviolite, the coughing is really bulky. What I don't like about the coughing in this team is the fact that it actually does contest for Eviolite. If you have a Torracat on the team, and even sometimes you want Eviolite on potentially those instead. So you might be stepping on toes in that way. But I mean, I don't hate the coughing. I really don't like the Morlul, not the Morlul, here.
I mean, we're glad it evolved from last season, but It definitely kind of works more into more of a Trick Room team. It's slow enough. It's got access to Spore, but Gardevoir isn't really there to set Trick Room, and it's just kind of that Pokemon that maybe doesn't fit as well. I definitely agree about the coughing there. I think maybe he's missing a way for Auto Sand to set up with Dracozolt with the Sand Rush. So maybe a Sand Setter in D was Hippopotas in D. I think it is.
Yeah, here's the thing. Because I'm a little bit neurotic and insane, I decided to go into the team builder and slap everybody's team in there and come up with some potential trades for everybody. And I found out a way to help his team with some trades that could potentially happen during the grace period. Now, obviously, this is totally up to him. I never recommend trades without giving the caveat that always do what you want to do. Don't take a Pokemon just because I said it was good. Always make sure to look into it. But I do think that there is really good potential here for a Trick Room package. If you replace Dracozolt with Stakataka, you get the Steel type that you're lacking first and foremost. And you get the ability to set Trick Room with the Prankster Copycat with Riolu and Stakataka as well, because Stakataka does get Trick Room, which is much better than maxing Gardevoir, in my opinion. And you can then enable the Greedent as well. The next thing that I would do is I would drop either Salazzle or Torracat. And it kind of really depends on the future of what you want to do, whether you need that fighting resistance in the form of Salazzle, if you're adding something like a Stakataka to your team. But if you drop Torracat, what you could pick up is Drampa, actually, which also really works well in Trick Room. Does have another fighting weakness, but at the end of the day, it actually kind of evens out. If you also pick up, instead of Shiinotic, you pick up like Mawile in the D tier, another little Steel type with some Intimidate pressure that you lost from Torracat. So those are the three that I would do: Stakataka, Drampa, and Mawile for Dracozolt, Torracat, and Shiinotic. Those are kind of working together to create kind of an interesting Trick Room core.
I see that. Personally, I see one of the biggest weaknesses of this team as well is he's a little bit weak to the ice. He's a bit weak to ice, and I know he's picked up that Torracat to maybe help mitigate that, and maybe that's why he went for the extra fire type and just some Intimidate pressure. But I would like to see, if he's going to keep the Dracozolt, I think that I would like to see the Sand mode, at least as a potential. I have said this to Dave himself. I think the potential of when teams are prepping, they look at this Dracozolt and they go, oh, well, it's going to be running Hustle 9 times out of 10 or something. Like it's going to be a Hustle max target, or maybe it'll be a Volt Absorb for the Lapras on one occasion. But if you just even have a Sand setter on your team, that means they have to then consider, well, oh, actually, this Dracozolt might be a Sand Rush, and I now have to recheck my speed EVs. Oh, do I need to be able to cancel the weather? It just makes that extra dimension to the opponent's prep, even if you don't intend to use it as intend to use it all the time. It's like a Sand Rush mon. It also gives you Hippowdon, which is a ground type, which this team is lacking, as well as a slow Trick Room mon. And that means you don't need Greedent. You can get rid of Greedent, buy Greedent, and get something else.
So actually I do like the idea of a Sand mode for this team. The only thing is you do have to be careful. Like you said, there is some ice weakness here. And the adding a Hippowdon on top of that is going to add more. So there's that. Some other interesting trades for maybe the future, or maybe even now if you're interested. I really like, instead of Greedent, I like Double for this team. Double Grassy.
Yeah, get Grassy Glide, yep.
And it's just like less, like you don't really have a setup team for the Greedent to like be able to do the belly stuff. So Double does a lot of more just instant tempo pressure.
Yeah, if he was
and then-
more obviously Trick Room, I'd be okay with Greedent staying because of threatening with the belly drum, but without the very obvious Trick Room mode there, it's kind of
Could
just
you
there,
imagine if he had that
Yeah,
in my
double?
opinion.
And double is obviously quite defensive. It runs stuff like cotton guard, body press, and all this and that. You could run Rillaboom and double, get the Grassy Glide, and then have Lapras come out and activate its weakness policy if we were Grassy Glide. It'd be a bit of damage, but I mean, it is a double at the end of the day. It's not doing loads of damage. I would love to see double on this team. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty obviously good trade. That's just an obvious upgrade from the Greedent. It's just, for me, I would try to secure a new core within the team, like either a Trick Room core or a Sand core first, so that you have the optionality. And making use of the 3 trades that you get from the grace period is going to be kind of limiting in a lot of ways. So this is something you got to really think about. What do you think, AJ?
AJ?
AJ, you around?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think. No, I'm just having a look at all these mons and trying to suggest trades. I think what you said. I think both those ideas are really good. It's either like supporting that Drake is a bit more, and I actually did the same thing in Masenko. I put all the teams in the team builder so I can see their types. Yeah, you do have that overall ice weakness to be mindful of. So it's tricky. If you remove one of them fire types, then you're gonna have to replace them with
and I think the way you do
another
that
ice resist somehow.
because it is at the moment he's currently running an incomplete fantasy core. He's got the fairy, he's got a dragon. You could get rid of Shinotic and get a steel type, and look, boom, problem solved. One less resistance, one more resistance, and one less weakness.
Yeah, I will mention the 3 trades that I made, and I tried doing this for everybody as well. Some teams I couldn't figure it out, but the 3 trades that I suggest, the Stack Attack, a Drampa, and Mawile, end up coming out neutral in all types or positive, no negative type matchups.
Nice.
So
you're a master at doing that. It seems
we've ranked the Coalossals out individually. So just a preface. When we've done the ranking, we've all done it individually. We've all got our own methods or shared methods. I say this because of mine's just a gut feeling. Everyone else's is a lot more methodical. But I'll let them get into the reasons why they ranked it now as we flip over it and we can see where they've all been ranked. So we have our individual rankings for this team. We've got myself, who's ranked it as a 10th. Masenko has ranked 12th. Bryan has ranked it 3rd. And AJ has ranked it 13th. So does people want to elaborate on this?
Why don't we just go in order?
Well, we can do that. We can go in order. We can start with me. Why not? Okay. So just to summarize everything that I think is just, as I say, it's got a solid fire water grass core. It's got the good offensive modes. It is lacking a little bit on the special offensive side outside of Lapras. I feel like there could be a little bit more support for the Lapras. I think Coughing, although it can be a good support, it's kind of clashing both with synergy with its ability and with competition for the Eviolite. There's not an overly great answer for Trick Room in this team. You have to be a little bit more creative. There's not really a Trick Room mode. It does have a good speed control, fast speed control, and I don't like Greedent. That is my thoughts, and that is why I've ranked him as number 10. I think it's a solid draft. I actually think this season, all the solid teams are like still really low. Like you can be placed really low, and I still think it's a solid team.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that as well. I think this is definitely, for me, pretty hard to rank everything properly. Luckily, I have my own little system to help me with that. But like, the main issue that I have with this team is you have a great mode in the form of Rillaboom and Driftblim. You have the Lapras. You have the great Fire, Water, Grass core. You have, obviously, Riolu's helping out with that.
Yeah.
And then it just feels like everything else kind of was just like thrown in there. Because it feels a little out of place for me. And I wish that was a part of a more complete package. So I think the main reason I put this in 12th, and honestly it could have gone higher than they ranked it, because I think that the core that he does have is really good, but it's also going to be a very predictable core that you're going up against most of the time. Everything else kind of just, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for him to use most of the tools that he has. And when you're limited that much in Draft League, I tend to rate things lower. You want that flexibility from the week-to-week basis. But for what he does have that's going to be consistent, it's good. So definitely can see it being around 10th place as well, or higher.
Bryan, you've got him as number 3.
I was using a new way of ranking the teams, and I'm still kind of getting used to it. So maybe I jumped the gun a little bit with this one in my ranking. But what I did value really high on the team was the fantastic speed control and the Unburden, Grassy Seed, Tailwind stuff. I had run some of their Disrupt. I think the team's deceptively disruptive a little bit with that Coalossal there being one of the faster fake out mons. It's got access to things like fake tears to help some of the special attackers get that extra kick in their attack. That Intimidate is always just going to be really good. And then I kind of valued the Shiinotic a little bit just because he was so out there with the Morlul last season. So a lot of that was a lot of the reasons why I ranked it as high as I did.
Yeah, I feel like it's a lot of what I've already said and whatnot. The sort of the speed element to this team is its strongest asset right now. The fact that Driftblim is so consistent. You have that solid core with Rillaboom and as well, and Flush with Fire type. Coalossal is very useful for utility. It has some good disruption capability as well with those powerhouses. But yeah, in terms of I think the overall rankings,
so
this
our
is
first team
where it sits.
Let's move on to our next team. So we're actually moving on to the Charlotte Beedrills, which I believe where did you finish last season, Bryan?
I finished 9th, but there were several scenarios where I could have snuck into the final playoff position, but the matches just didn't fall in my favor.
Do you want to just give the initial impressions for this team? Go for it, please.
I guess I'll take it away. I helped Bryan build this team with just me and him, and I mean, I think he got help elsewhere as well, and I just think this team is fantastic. Like, this is just a really, really, really good team. Has everything pretty much synergizing the way you need it to. You have Blastoise with redirection in the form of Clefable. That's kind of an essential thing that he needs, and Clefable's basically one of the most consistent redirectors. Part of the reason we didn't go with Clefairy is because we wanted the Eviolite for Thwackey. Thwackey on this team is also very nice, getting that fake out support, able to activate weakness policy on Blastoise, potentially with the Grassy Glide, able to activate Sap Sipper on Miltank. You have Aegislash and Mienshao. Mienshao is awesome in this team. It's just creating a lot of great coaching opportunities, and what you could do with Aegislash is, since coaching goes through Protect, you can do King Shield plus coaching into Aegislash and just immediately get such a solid boost for it. Not to mention that you also have Berserker on the team who boosts Aegislash's steel moves as well. And all of that.
Berserker was pretty much one of the later additions to this team, because this team has had about 15 iterations of it, I think.
Yeah,
Just figuring out things we're fixing. Then a couple of times we mistiered a couple of mons that were in the plan. So the Berserker there definitely was one of the later additions to the team that I'm looking forward to utilizing.
Yeah, and of course, you know, the Articuno has Tailwind and Trick Room Imprison. The Thunderous is an incredible offensive threat on the team. I think Rapidash with coaching is even really good on this team. I think Guzzlord is, like, as much as Guzzlord is a difficult mon to use, I think if there's a team that could use it, it's definitely this one. So yeah, that's everything that I have to say about it. I really genuinely don't have many negative things to say about this team, personally. Just why I rated it so high.
Next. So I really like, obviously, Blastoise with Clefable, super solid. I mean, you've got that Shell Smash pressure. Run it physical or special. You can run it physical with Jesus. You can run it Shell Smash next to Clefable, and then run Coaching Mienshao with physical Blastoise. That could be something. I really like the Miltank and the Thunderous as support options for the Blastoise. Having both Sap Zipper and Volt Absorb on the same team really helps Blastoise from the switch-ins, so your opponent can never be 100% certain as to what they can do against it. I think deceptively he's got a really good Trick Room mode. I know that's not exactly what you're intended for, but like Articuno can set Trick Room, you can get Berserker inside the Trick Room, you can get Guzzlord inside Trick Room. And even Blastoise isn't the fastest of mons, so it can be ran inside Trick Room, similar to how I used to run Metagross inside a Trick Room. So I do think there's that flexibility there. Some of the harder hitting mons are a little bit slower, like Yagi / the Blastoise and stuff. I do think this team's whole centered around Blastoise, which can be both good and a little bit restrictive at times, especially when Blastoise is always going to be like the main damaging mon, the main one you want to be, or at least it appears to be. I'd say the Firewater Grass Core is a little bit on the weaker side with using some of the lower tier mons to make it up, but that's okay because he's got a strong fantasy core. Guzzlord might not be the best dragon, but in my opinion, I don't think dragons are that important. Not as important as all the other typings of the other cores. So like that's fine. But you've got two solid seal types to help with the fairy for the weakness, so that's great. I do like the Steely Spirit mode you've got with the Aegislash and the Berserker. That's pretty fun, especially when you can be leading to something like Aegislash and Volt Switch Thunderous and bring out the Berserker. The one thing I would say, like, I don't know if, I not like I'd make suggesting trades right now. There is a possibility that Berserker could be like maybe Clink Clang. You just as a direct trade. I know you want it for the Steely Spirit, you get fake out pressure and stuff, but you've already got a lot of fake out anyway. And the reason why I say that is because the team is, as a whole, kind of lacking a little bit on the physical side. There's a lot of special offensive mons. And yeah, you can get Aegislash, which is physical, but it's a little bit frail when it's in its sword form. I do feel when I look at this, it's just a little bit more specially offensive than it is physically. And Clink Kang can set up with like shift gears and stuff right next to the Clefable, and I think that's another alternate mode that you could be running as well. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty solid team, and I really like Articuno. Don't know why, just do. So.
Yeah, I think this is really strong. I think literally like I had all the positives taken away by them guys, so like I won't re-mention them again. Like obviously you've nailed down Blastoise and Redirection, and yeah, I love the Sap Zipper and the Volt Absorb combo to support Blastoise. You know, even aside from the sort of thwacky setup element of it. I'll jump into just one of the two things that I would possibly, you know, think it maybe lacks, or you know, there is slight weakness, and that would be reflected in the rankings when we just flick on them now. Is that I feel like I feel like Articuno could be a little bit pressured in this team, being your sort of your main Tailwind, Trick Room, sort of Mon. In terms of, are there any Mons that Thunderous T
really good
could give some max airstream boost, but I'm not sure you probably want to. Yeah. So there's that, and then I think in terms of the components which I've ranked each team on, it was that I rated it slightly lower than the other stuff, and then also the sort of disruption and mitigation element. I just thought there were other teams obviously that specialised in that a little bit more. You have the fake out pressure, sure, but then these like other cool moves like Snarl. I think Guzzlord, I think, is your only Snarler. But yeah, I was literally just struggling very hard to pick holes. It's a very, very good team overall. It scored top for pretty much the other aspects. So, well done.
I do agree that the Guzzlord and the Articuno are going to be kind of harder to utilize than the rest of the teams, but without giving too much away, I think I've theorized ways to use them well. If you look at Guzzlord's HP stat, it's completely bonkers at 223. So, like, if played the correct way against the correct team, it could be a late turn max just to soak up damage and do some respectable damage with enough investments or super effective moves. And then it's definitely going to be harder to set a Tailwind with the Articuno there, but I'm looking forward to finding a way to do it.
Yeah, just before we move on, I want to say that I think there's a little bit of underestimating the physical offensive pressure of Miltank as a max option here. So especially with coaching and the sap sipper and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's
what they were going at, like at face value. I think my supportive stuff have my strongest attack stats, and kind of my sweeper stuff have kind of my higher special attacking stats. And so I definitely think this team is a little more physical than Matrix and AJ are giving it credit, but we're definitely looking forward to working that out.
Yeah.
I don't have any qualms about the physical nature of it. I actually think I think Blastoise has never seen a better team in his life. So yeah, like there's lots to love. I'm literally I struggle to pick
I've got
anything
here on the screen now. It's the draft scores we've given to the Charlotte Beedrills. Myself, I've given 8. Masenko, you've already said that you rate it highly. You've given it 2. Bryan, you have given it 4, and AJ has given it, I believe, 7. Yeah. Yes, it is a 7.
Looks like a 1, but it is 7.
So yeah, so we basically covered a lot of what's been said. We've covered a lot about the teams and the reasons for it, but just to summarize, like my opinions on it, every time I come to the draft score, I'll just summarize briefly what my overall opinions. I do think that the Firewater Grass Court is a little bit on the weak side, just a little. It's got a decent fantasy core. I think there's a deceptively good trick room mode here. The team as a whole is a little bit slow, as mentioned before. It will be kind of challenging for the Tailwind / trick room to be set. But I think there's a lot of options around that, such as like scarfing some mons here and there. Like you got good. I really like the scarf as an item, and I think there's a lot of good ways to utilize that here. You've also got max airstream options in 2 mons, so I think that's really good. You've got plenty of fake out here. Some might say too much fake out. But honestly, it's good. It's good options. It's good options. I really like how Miltank
Can you have too much fake out,
Blastoise, which is clearly your focal point of your team. And yeah, other than just like my one suggestion of possibly Clink Clang over Berserker for that setup with Clefable, like you've got plenty of setup options as well with Sword Stance and Nasty Plots and stuff like that all around.
Yeah, so just to keep things brief, because I think we pretty much are going to say what we said before we hit this screen. So I'll probably just say, I give it a 2. I think it's a good team. So go ahead, Bryan, your move.
I rated it as like the second best of my ratings, but there was like a 4-way tie for second. So to avoid any bias towards my team, I kind of put it on the lower end of the teams I've ranked second best. So 4.
Yeah, this is a top half team, like very easily. It's just when I just did my averages, this is where it came out.
This team is the most Bryan team that he's drafted to date. I think that's a good thing. I think it's got a lot of things that Bryan really likes as a player, and I haven't taken that into account as when I'm looking at this team. I'm looking at it as a team, not who's piloting it. And I do think Bryan will be able to pilot this really well based on his playstyle. So.
Yeah, we've kind of spent the first 2 UGA seasons developing my playstyle a little bit, and I think this team I've selected is just the result of that. Yeah,
we move on to the Dark Lords Greninjas. This is Dark Lord Samadel, the co-host to the Machamp of the Week with you, AJ. You had a big helping with the drafting process this season with AJ, didn't you? With Dark Lord.
Yeah, it was part of his front office. But don't worry, there were many times where he just said no.
Guys,
we are not considering.
At least you got my other favorite mon, my other favorite draft.
There was the options.
I remember sniping that off you last season. Dark Lords last season did a really good run at later half of the season run. A little bit to a rough start to begin with, but a few trades like midway of the season, he came back flying, quite literally with the rocket, with Celesteela.
Some of the best trades I've ever seen in draft.
Ever so slightly, Kate. Yeah. He just missed out on playoffs. Just missed out. Yes,
he was the one who knocked me out.
So yeah, no, the Dark Lords played really well last season, especially towards the end. I think we're just seeing the cusp of him as a player, really starting to develop his own play style as well. Like considering he was so unsure. Like I remember at the start of the season last, he wasn't even fully aware of Beat Up Justified, and yet here we have seen him draft the very same mode. So, initial thoughts?
Yep. So I rated Dark Lord very high for a few reasons. I mean, I can't help but brag to say that I also had a Gallade and a Flygon and a Venusaur with Sun Mode last season, so maybe he got a little inspiration from me. No, I'm just messing. But no, this is a team that I think if you look at it, like this could have very easily been a team from last season, right? Like this is a team that like you wouldn't expect him to have navigated the tier list that we have been given for this season so expertly in drafting this powerhouse of a team, right? It's got
what's really cool about his draft this season. Sorry for interrupting you, Masenko. But as a mid, he had a really mid pick. It was like 8 or 9. So he kind of went the low value route or whatever, and got some of his lower tiers that support the team really well. So he started with the Manetric, and I think that was the one thing that we agreed he was missing on his team last season was some sort of lightning rod user. So I thought that was really funny that the one thing that he missed from last season he actually picked up as his first overall pick. And then he went into the Trick Room mode with stuff like the Cradilly, the Copperajah, the Aromatisse, and then filled in the high damage Pokemon, the Venusaur, Gmax, the Torkoal, the Gyarados much later into the draft, like probably the last 3 picks or so. So I think it was a really interesting draft decision when it came to planning the team very well. I thought it was really well executed.
Yeah, I just so much good about this team, right? Like, it's basically got everything you'd want. Forced redirection, right? You don't have, a lot of teams will draft, Togepi or whatever and stuff, and they don't really need it. This team does not need like hard redirection. You have Lightning Rod and you have Storm Drain on this team to help with Torkoal, to help with the Gyarados. All of this is super great. You got a Trick Room core with the Aromatisse, with the Caparaja, and that is adding to the fantasy core. So like the fantasy core is in Trick Room altogether, and that's fantastic. The Firewater Grass core is insanely good. You can use Gyarados. Even in Sun, like, it's good, right? Like, you don't always have to use water moves if you want to max it. Like, just having max Airstreams go off and get Moxie boosts, like, fantastic, Yeah, all in all, fantastic. I love Gallade as a Trick Room setter as well. And as an offensive threat, you have the Sneasel to pair with him, which is a great pairing because Gallade definitely resists a lot of stuff that Sneasel is weak to, and Sneasel resists a lot of stuff that Gallade is weak to. So just like as a pairing, they cover each other really well.
Yeah, and they can work together too with the Beat Up Justified.
Yep, exactly. The one thing I will say is that the Scraggy is a little sticking out as a sore thumb to me.
I agree.
And I have an idea for how to fix that, which is strictly to get rid of the Scraggy, and instead you trade away the Cradilly and pick up Lileep instead in that slot with the Eviolite. It's a really cool mon that I think a lot of people undervalue. Still gets Storm Drain, still gets all the stuff you want from a Cradilly. And in that Cradilly slot...
You're going to say Scrafty, aren't you?
Crafty?
No. No, actually. I am going to say this is going to give you a slight rock weakness by 1, but it's worth it. I think you should draft Charizard right there. It's a fantastic addition to this team. Yes, you have a little bit of extra rock weakness, but like Charizard is such a good pairing with Venusaur as well, and you have now 2 possible Sun threats that people are going to have to prep for. I really like Charizard there, and he's a B tier now. So,
and then that also means that the Lightning Rod and the Storm Drain will protect it as well.
Yes, exactly.
I when I looked at this team, the two gripes I had with it was the Cradilly and the Scraggy. To be honest, I felt like Cradilly was a little bit out of place for some of the especially as a B tier. I feel like it's a high valued pick that's not potentially doing much, but as a D tier mon in the elite with Eviolite, I can see that being okay. I'm not sure if that's the best thing for this team, but I do like the idea of the extra Charizard. Yeah, like that could be that could be really threatening. We already know how strong like Torkoal, Venusaur, Charizard was, and yes, it might not be the G-Max version of Charizard, but it's still strong. Still a Charizard.
He can't. Well, it would have to be. Yeah, it would have to be the regular Charizard because.
The points.
G-Max is S tier, right? Yeah, for points. Yeah. So
yeah.
I'm sorry. And that does give him. That also gives him the pledges that work really well. It's always really fun to see those dual starter modes run both of their pledges to get that additional effect. I don't remember what Fire and Grass makes.
Fire.
Yeah, it just damages them.
Yeah.
It does. It gives it basically gives G-Max Charizard's effect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'd be interesting. To think about adding Charizard to it.
On that with the Venusaur max move and the Charizard, like that'd be crazy. It's a lot of damage.
Yeah. It's a lot of reciprocal damage that players might not be able to take easily.
So I kind of missed a little bit of what you guys said a few minutes ago. I just had to move away. So I hope I'm not going to be like reiterating ideas. But do you want me to swap over to what the rankings are?
Yeah, let's just go through that real quick.
Okay, so high ranked team across the board from us all. I've actually ranked him as my number 1 team. Save for that Scraggy and the Cradilly, I think this team is so solid. So solid. And actually I can see if you put Charizard on that team, like you said, then that would solidify it to me as like being a top tier team. Like it would be I can't say much more to be honest. I really like the Trick Room mode. I think it's a great Trick Room mode. I love Aromatisse. I got a personal bias, not gonna lie. I think Manectric and Gyarados can be super scary into certain teams with that Moxie or Intimidator support. Great Firewater Grass Core. Great. He's got a very good Fantasy Core as well. Great modes, beat up Venacol as well as some of the others. So yeah, like there's nothing much more than what you guys have already said. I think it's just super solid. I really like the draft. Masenko, you've got him ranked as number 3. Bryan, you've got it as number 2, and AJ, you also have it as number 2. So take it away. I don't know.
AJ, you want to give some final thoughts? I think the rest of us spoke a lot on this.
Yeah, final thoughts. Bryan was dead right. We didn't really plan it beforehand like you guys did, and we just basically saw our position at 8th and thought, you know what, we'll just go from the bottom up. We really like the look of Manectric, and we realised that like at the top end of the draft, there's so many S tiers that could potentially benefit from a Manectric. You know, you think of Charizard Gmax itself, you know, Celesteela, Tapu Fini. So yeah, that was sort of thinking, and then yeah, we kind of just picked good mons as we saw them, and then immediately tried to synergize with them afterwards. So like pick Copperaja, but then really wanted that around Matisse, and owed back to last season where Matrix sniped me. I was like, you've got to get it.
No. Didn't snipe you. That was always mine, never anyone else's.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way. Yeah, I completely agree. Like, basically, we've been talking with ourselves, trying to find like the one. We actually quite like Scraggy, but we recognise that Cradilly is a little bit out of place. The one thing this team lacks is Tailwind, and so I made a suggestion of maybe putting Bravery in there instead of Cradilly. But yeah, we're still mulling it over.
Please.
Get Max Airstream Charizard. It's all good. Max Airstream Charizard. Max Airstream Gyarados.
You have Chlorophyll. Like, you don't really need
Chlorophyll. You got Icy Wind. You're good. You got decent.
I mean, yeah.
Not every team gets Tailwind.
I didn't have Tailwind last season.
True.
I didn't either. I had it for a minute, then I traded it away.
Never had it. Never looked back.
But we're super happy with Gyarados, and we recognised it like as we were halfway in. We were like, you know what, this might be a really great pick. It actually features well in both cores. If you think about Copperaja, like what does Copperaja hate? Fighting, ground, fire. Well, guess what? Gyarados can come in on all of that.
Yeah, no.
Right. Like it just works so well. So yeah, I'm dead happy for him. Hope he does well.
Okay.
Definitely.
So that's the Dark Lord's Greninjas. Hopefully we see a really good season out of him. And we move on now to the South Croydon Soars, another Johto veteran from last season. He actually finished really high. He came second overall in the regular season and finished inside the top 4 as a semi-finalist. So yeah, do you guys want to give some thoughts on this? Let's start with Bryan. Let's have a hear from you. What do you have to say?
So I like that it's sort of trick roomy, but it's also little deceptively trick roomy with the addition of the Pheromosa there, speed swapping into some of the slower stuff like the Octillery, like the Glastrier there. And then you can also, he's got a real super reliable Tailwinder in Crobat because it can't be flinched and it's 130 base speed, so you can't so the only way you can basically taunt it is with a Prankster taunt. The I think that it's the Togetic there was his first pick, and it could definitely help the PZ setup with a nasty plot, or even like with Swords Dance with Glastrier or stuff like that. So I think there's a lot that this team can do.
Mm-hmm. No, building on from what you say, I really like when I see this team. I don't see your type cores because there isn't any, to be honest. The fire water grass core is there. I think fire water grass, but they're not exactly the strongest fire water grass. And your fantasy core, well, he's missing a steel type, which is quite. I think most teams need a decent steel type, but it's hard for every team to get one. However, what he does have is he's got different type of core. He's got a trick room type of core and a fast mode core. And it's bridged by Pheromosa, bridges this fast mode between his slow Glastrier, his slow Mashana. Don't underestimate Mashana. Mashana can hit hard. It's over 100 base special attack and it's bulky. You've got slow Octillery and Lurantis, and that's fine. Like Lurantis is one of the reasons why Lurantis is under like not the best is because it does get contrary, which is great with like Leaf Storm and Superpower. But it's slow, and it's not so slow that it works all the time inside trick rooms. Wherefore, speed swap into Lurantis, which has got like Leaf Storms and Superpowers, that's kind of scary. And I love how Togetic supports Porygon Z. We know how strong Porygon Z was with Clefairy. I know that was with Friend Guard, but Togetic is probably just as good a support as any, because you can't just go firing off fighting type moves, because Togetic is 4 times it's twice resistance with Fairy and Flying. So I think that's a really great mode. Crobat supporting that Porygon Z as well really helps that Porygon Z to just fire off and hit hard fast. So there's 2 conflicting modes that people have to prep for with this team. So yeah.
I really like this team for the most part. I think it's definitely got a lot of stuff going for it. As you guys said, I like the Pheromosa bridging the trick room. I always think it's really important if you're running a trick room team to have a speed swapper on there. I know AJ last season you had a really good trick room team with Ribombee on it, and also Glastrier, which also does the trick. But here's the thing: all of the max options on this team, for the most part, are weak to fighting, which is an issue in my opinion. PZ, Glastrier, and Crocodile, right? I can see Octillery maxing for sure. You could see sometimes you could see Mortar maxing. I could definitely see that as well. Maybe Basharna, right? But for the most part, like those are the 3 main max targets, and they're all weak to fighting. So I think one of the things that maybe you think about is figuring out which of those that you want to potentially swap out for a trade. And although I didn't come up with the perfect trades for this, one that I noticed was instead of Porygon Z, you can grab Nihilego, who is going to be really good for this team. Also gets Trick Room, and yes, you double up on Poison. I also think that as a Steel type, one option is, and this is kind of trading away some of the earliest picks you had, but if you want to trade Togetic for Ferrothorn, also a really good Trick Room on Steel type, and trade away the Lurantis for like Absol or something, because you do still have like beat up with Dracloak. Absol is kind of a underrated pick this season, in my opinion. It's like justified in D tier, so you could definitely make use of it with this team, especially with Speed Swap, especially with Trick Room and stuff like that. Those are and also Tailwind. Obviously, you have Tailwind with the Crobat, which is also really consistent. So those are my kind of suggestions to think about. I mean, obviously they're not the perfect picks, but like I do think Nihilego is like really good for this team, especially.
They still create the same problem though. Like you'd still have that fighting weakness with your A tier, your S tier, and your B tier.
Nihilego doesn't have weakness to fighting.
Does Poison resist fighting?
It does, yes.
Yeah, Poison resist fighting, so that'd be a neutral. Okay.
Yeah, that's neutral. Fair enough.
But its defense is really high, so it might just go down to 1 anyway.
Yeah,
I mean low.
It might just go down to a close combat anyway. But I think one of the biggest things I dislike about this team is I feel like Dracloak is just so out of place.
Yeah.
Like, if there's anyone
I
on this team
agree.
that makes me think it's just been thrown
it's
up
a-
there, it's Dracloak. And there's so much better D tiers in that tier.
What I noted in my sort of notes is that I think this is going to be a team that's going to have to really use the mid-week trade or the mid-season trade period to really like shore up exactly what you want its identity to be, because I do think it has like kind of a big identity issue. And yes, they've got fighting weakness on all those three, but what I'm really concerned about, like right now, is the rock and ice weakness. That's bigger than the fighting weakness. It's just I noticed that all the max options had fighting weakness, so that's an issue in itself. But adding like a Neoligo to the team will automatically help with a little bit of that. Actually, no, it doesn't resist either of those things. But some of the like Ferrothorn, for instance, like that's going to be really helpful against rock and ice, or actually Ferrothorn's neutral to ice. I don't know. Either way,
I think Togetic is needed for this team as it is.
I really don't think it is, personally. I think what do you like other than Porygon Z, what are you redirecting for?
Musharna, Glastrier inside Trick Room, Octillery, Moody, Lurantis so it can get boosted, Crocodile so it doesn't go down instantly. Quite a lot.
I don't know. I just it's one of those things where I don't think that the redirection is actually necessary here. Everything's bulky enough.
Okay, so I've got the draft scores up here now. So if I said a lot already, Bryce said a lot already. I think AJ could probably start us off on this one, but I was gonna say Matrix. I've got it ranked as my number 7. Masenko smack bang at number 8. Bryan also at number 7, and AJ at number 9. So pretty middling score from all of us. So AJ.
I'll say a few words. Great to have Crizzle back in season 3. By the way, just want to say that he's a great guy. Always posts his content. Always posts his sets and his videos as well. And yeah, just a great guy to have around. Another Brit.
He actually recently did a video for a different division that they posted somewhere.
Oh,
yeah,
Sinnoh.
I think Pro-Win division. Or yeah, Sinnoh. Yeah, it was Sinnoh.
Nice.
So, sorry, just wanted to shout out that video so that he could go get some views on that as well.
Yeah, great. I'll have to check that one out.
I think he posted it, but yeah.
I agree with what's been said. It has shades of my team from last season, and
you know what?
when
I completely agree. There's something about this team that really makes me think. I maybe it's the Glastrier speed swap and Trick Room, but it really reminds me of your team.
It's a little bit. It's an upgrade in the sense that you got Togetic over Moongus, which my team had, but my team also had the downfall that a lot of the carries had shared weaknesses, like Copperaja, Glastrier, Marowak, weak to rock, shared that with Glastrier. So I would definitely recommend, I think, trying to, really, because it's quite top heavy, and I suffered from this last season in the sense that I think, Crizzle, I think you're going to end up in your matches, you're going to have a solid core of support mons that you'll take, but then you'll probably only likely utilize that one carry. And I think maybe evening out the team either by dropping Glast or dropping Porygon Z, or to remove that shared weakness could work better. The one other thing I was going to say is that I agree that Dracloak seems better out of place, but it's funny because you've got Dracloak and Crocodile here, almost screams out for a justified user.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. That's
but otherwise,
user is probably one of the most glaring things that I'm seeing when looking at this team is just missing that justified user.
I mean, you could technically trade out Glastrier for something like Cobalion or Terrakion are still available. So
Cobalions worth an S tier trade.
Cobalion?
Mm-hmm.
I think Cobalion is one of the best mons in Draft League, so I don't know what everybody else is thinking. And so many people thought that Cobalion wasn't good. I don't know why.
I find it difficult. I've used it in 2 leagues, so I do keep going back to it. It's my favourite of the Swords of Justice, but just because of its bulk.
Yeah. Anyway,
So-
sorry to JJ.
No.
No, that's pretty much it. But otherwise, solid team. Like Crobat is amazing. And yeah, like Togetic really. I mean, obviously, like Porygon Z plus redirection is nothing to scoff at.
Yeah.
At all.
One thing that I forgot to mention that nobody else mentioned as well is that you have Magmortar with the Mach Punch, who can activate
course.
weakness spells on all these fighting types, or these fighting weak mons. So there's that.
Yes. I think I even remember saying to him during his draft when he got the PZ. I don't know. I remember saying to someone, "Oh yeah, get Magmar, or something like that. Mach Punch. But no, Magmortar's really good. You know what?
Yeah, it's a very deceptive mon when it comes to that Mach Punching ability. Not a lot of non-fighting types get the Mach Punch, so that's definitely something maybe someone who's a little less experienced could take advantage of that.
Okay, well,
just finally, I think it'd be interesting if this team stays how it is. It'd be interesting to see how it pans out versus the rest of the teams in the league, because this is one of the more top-heavy ones, and based on our new tier list, you would argue that the tier list caters to a more sort of evened distribution team, right? Less at the top end, more in the lower tiers. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to watch.
okay, well,
I guess we're moving on.
yeah, I suppose so. So yeah, that's the South Croydon Soars. Best of luck to you as well. We have reached the Drowsy Drakazolts.
Hey, that's me.
Yeah, that is Masenko, our resident tier list expert.
Yeah.
You as you said at the start of the video, you say that you were the regular season champion, finishing top of the division last season, and then going into the playoffs with that round 1 bye, you faced off and unfortunately lost in the semi-finals, didn't you?
By Tyler, yeah.
Yeah,
It was,
Tyler.
It was a fun match. I maxed Klefki both games, so that's probably why I lost.
Oh dear, that Togekiss. But no, so this season we see you've got. It's a very colourful team. I like that. I think visuals of a team really help me to really warm me up to a team, because there's some teams you get which are like they feel like they have a lot of psychic, fairy, dark, normal, and it just seems to be very samey. But this team just seems to be very vibrant, very
Pops.
yeah, the color pops on
It's
all of them.
colorful in the Pokemon options, and I think it's also very literally colorful, as in there's a lot of
There's a lot going on.
colors in this team, so it's very aesthetically pleasing to look at.
Oh, I think that's what he was saying before.
That's
Right.
exactly. So, you actually started off your draft with Weezing Galar.
Mhm.
And that was your first pick, and your last pick was the Regigigas.
We kind of both saved our S tier picks for last. Kind of briefly jumping back to our team, as Drake, as Masenko and I, we both kind of planned our teams together, and it just kind of both. We took one of the more mons that was more critical to our game plans, and then saved that obvious pairing for like the very last pick, and I don't know. It's just something similar between our drafts this season.
I think that's a very good strat. Just to highlight that, anyone newer to Draft League, I think should take note that, sometimes if you pick one mon and then there's an obvious pairing, but it doesn't synergize with anyone else's team, then you can comfortably leave it, right?
Yeah, and also if there's obvious sort of like backup options. So for Brian's case, he could have just as easily picked Clefairy, right? So there's no reason to pick, Clefable early if both Clefairy and Clefable are still up for the entire draft.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, worst case scenario, pick a different redirection user.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I've done the same thing in previous drafts. I've left my Salamence as my last pick when I could have easily gone for Dragonite. I've left my Cobalion when I could have gone for Terrakion. I've left Primarina when I could have gone for anything else. That's my type of drafting. I always like to leave at least one S tier or one high tier mon to the end and figure out what my options are there. But back to your team. So you pick the Weezing at the start, you pick the Regigigas at the end. They obviously, when you got a Weezing and Regigigas, it's the most obvious thing when you're looking at your team. You go, oh wow, this guy's got Weezing and Regigigas and Archeops.
Yes.
So
that's excited
what
to
really
use
draws your attention to this team.
I was going to say I'm super excited to use Archeops. It's like a Pokemon that nobody used last season.
Yeah.
And like this is a great team for it, in my opinion. Like it just synergizes really well with most stuff, especially the Weezing, obviously.
Yeah, it's one of those mons that has the ability that really hinders it. So just being able to get rid of that ability and let it start the battle off with its 124 attack stat.
It's pretty high.
Yeah, that really high attack stat, which is just slightly lower than the Regigigas' attack stat, if not higher. I can't remember if Regigigas is 130 or 110.
It's 140 attack.
Yeah.
140 attack. Yeah.
Yep. And 112 special attack, which is really crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's one of those mons where if you can pair it really well with neutralizing gas, get rid of that defeatist, it's ready to do some heavy damage right up front, or save it in the back for a little as a little cleanup crew. So it's an interesting look at the Regigigas pairing there.
So yeah, so that's just drawing attention to the first thing, which is obvious, which is that Gigas and Weezing. But if we look more at the team as a whole, you can see that you've got two cores. You've got your Fire, Water, Grass core, and you've got that Fantasy core. And to start off, your Fire, Water, Grass core, I think individually they are good mons. You've got Roserade, which I think is underrated. I think it could be really good. Sharpedo for its tier is really decent, especially with like a speed boosting mon that low. And Volcarona, you can't really go wrong with. I think Volcarona's super solid.
Love Volcarona.
No matter,
Love it
just always seems to do well. It could be Rage Powder, it could be Quiver Dance, it could be support, it could be offensive. Even though it's 4 times weak to Rock, it's not too bad on a team like this, as you yourself are aware. It's a team that covers itself with its weaknesses really well, and I think part of that is due to the fact that you've got this Bronzong and the Weezing, which has got the Levitate and the Heat Proofs and stuff, so it allows you to get this extra flexibility on your type charts, including the Dry Skin, Toxicroak and stuff. Levitate Latios, so you got a lot of abilities that help you mitigate weaknesses as well. But what I really like about this team is that Fantasy core. It's a very strong Fantasy core. And I'm not including Bronzong when I say this. I'm talking about Bisharp, Latias, and Weezing. I think it's possibly one of, if not the strongest core Fantasy core of the season.
It's a homebrew, right? I call it the cyberpunk fantasy core because they all look super futuristic. So like it perfectly covers each other, right? Like Bisharp has 4 times weakness of fighting, the other 2 resist fighting, especially Weezing, who's 4 times resistant to fighting, right? Weak to ground, the Bisharp, no problem. You got 2 levitate mons to counter with it. You got somebody who is who's a steel type, who's going to threaten the Weezing. The Bisharp can resist that. There's all sorts of really good coverage, just type-wise, but also like as a trio, they're all set up to make the Bisharp just sweep, right? Like Bisharp is so protected on this team for the most part.
Yeah. And that's particularly because obviously Bisharp, super strong physical attacker, does really benefit from a little bit of speed control that Latias provides with Tailwind. It gets a solid attack stat. It's got Defiant, which means that you're not threatened by stat drops and stuff. If anything, you encourage the stat drops. But what's really cool is obviously Weezing can be run with Misty Terrain, Misty Surge, which protects Bisharp from burns as an attack drop.
Yep. And obviously, there's other Mons on the team who would definitely benefit from that as well. Even Regigigas, who you wouldn't get neutralizing gas in that case, but still, it's still decent.
But yeah, as a whole, pretty solid. I don't know what else to say on this one until we get to the overall thoughts. AJ, got anything else?
I think this team is awesome. I'm in love with the the perfect sort of type synergy of it. Yeah, blesses my eyes and my OCD.
Yeah.
I don't know too much about Roserade. I literally so my notes here.
What is Roserade?
I didn't know too much about. Yeah, what is this thing? But I realized it does get some really cool moves like Cotton Spore.
It gets Worry Seed as well to help out with the
nice
issues.
Nice. Yeah, awesome.
So there are multiple ways to get rid of those downer abilities and slow start and
funnily enough, it's also
hindering
only Pokemon left who can learn Toxic competitively. So I might be able to use that at some point.
I like Roserade. I think Roserade's a good mon. It's got a 90 base speed, so it's like middling speed tier.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'll just get the draft scores up. So I've given it a 3. Masenko has humbly given himself a 1. Bryan is also joined in that and a 1, and AJ has given him a 3 also. So
and this isn't a bias and kind of sort of helping him build the team. I just honestly think it's the best team.
I really like the creativity behind it. I think it really it's got some meta picks in it. Obviously, with Regigigas and Weezing, like you can't get much more Series 9 meta than that. But it's also got a lot of creativity around that. So I really don't expect Masenko to be the type of player who's just going to go Gigas Weezing. It's not. It's just that. This is what I'm talking about with this pressure to prep. I think Gigas does more for this team just being there than it could do coming to the match. The reason why I've given it a 3 though is that it does have a slightly frail Firewater Grass core. It's not the best Firewater Grass core. It's good. It's just not. It could be stronger. I don't know if it could be stronger for the tiers that are available, but just that. Gigas Weezing is great, obviously, and forces prep. But given enough prep, a lot of people have run into this thing so many times. A lot of more experienced players know how to counter Regigigas and Weezing, and will naturally draft ways to counter that. Just as part of the drafting process. I know I do these days. I do think the Trick Room mode, you've got Bronzong, but not really anything for Trick Room, so I presume that Bronzong's going to be there for, similar to how you ended last season, you kind of just strayed away from having a Trick Room mode. I feel like you've started off this season in the same manner, where you're just going to be going for trying to avoid the Trick Room more so than playing in it. I know you've got some mods that can operate inside the Trick Room, but it's not like there's a actual Trick Room mode.
Just to touch on the Bronzong real quick before you continue. I picked Bronzong for a couple reasons. Obviously, the type weaknesses and stuff like that's really helpful, but it does get Trick Room in prison, so I could do that. It also gets Speed Swap, so if I am up against somebody who is in Trick Room, I can Speed Swap my own people to give them really low speed.
That's true. As I say, I think Bronzong is like almost your sole Trick Room answer. You've got. I know you've got other ways to do it as well. Everyone does, but I'm just saying that's the most notable. R.EX Weezing, which I think could be really interesting. You've got 3 poison types. I just wanted to point that out. That's kind of interesting to know. Just an interesting note. I know one of them isn't weak to ground. One of them is, and one of them is immune. So just something I thought I'd point out. There is no ground type, but I don't think there's a major need for it. The same as how you don't have a ghost type, but again, I don't think there's a major need. You've got 2 solid tailwind setters, so really good. Your airstream mon is Archeops maybe, so like your speed control is a little bit. You've got some
Volcarona.
fast mons there already, so yeah, you got. So I think it's okay. Like that's getting nitpicky at this point. Like just trying to find something, you know.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's a super solid team. This is why I've got it as rank number 3. I don't know what it is. I'm just drawn to it. It's just like, ooh, pretty colours.
Love the Archeops as well. Like really excited to see that in action.
Yeah, I'm excited for this team. It's super fun, I think. Like it's just a fun team.
Yeah, totally.
And when we were building it, it wasn't even intended to cover every single weakness the way it does. It just happened to do that. That was like a side effect of
I
building.
didn't even think about picking. I thought about picking Weezing. I didn't even think about picking Regigigas at first because I was like, that's a meta combo, whatever. And I started building the team and I was like, I need a normal type. I have a lot of points left over.
Breathe
Yeah.
Regigigas it's pretty good here. Oh crap! No, I ended up deciding to pick it.
It's a shame that I think that you've got this terrain mode as well, and you didn't manage to get a unburden one in the end to really take advantage of.
I think with Misty terrain, it's kind of the weaker of the terrains because its side effect is really just weakening dragon type attacks.
I don't know. I think
So,
Misty terrain's
I
probably
think with
the
that
strongest.
specific terrain, it doesn't really need the.
Blocks Will-O-Wisp though, and
Yeah,
right?
it blocks every status.
No,
element.
onto Bishop.
That's the other one. That's the other one, isn't it?
No, Misty terrain blocks every status element.
Oh yeah, that was that one. Okay, sorry,
I think it's the strongest terrain personally.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, sorry. I had a brain
Only
fart, so-
counter synergy with the terrain, but I don't see you running the terrain as your primary mode all the time. Is like you got the Will-O-Wisp from Volcarona can't Will-O-Wisp, and your Guts Luxray can't be activated. But a lot of the time, I think Luxray is just like a budget Arcanine. I know we didn't really say much about Luxray. I think Luxray is a decent mon. I think it's more appropriately tiered this season, and it is a budget Arcanine / Incineroar type thing. No fake out, but it does get stuff like Snarl, Baby Doll Eyes, Intimidate. It gets all that same type of utility, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it'll be really good this season for you. So yeah.
All right, moving on.
Solid team. Well done. Good draft. Moving on. We have the Somerville Scraggies, the second place, the runner-up player from last season. Will he succeed where he fell short this time?
Go Tyler.
Well, he
You
doesn't
got
have
this.
that anymore, so
So yeah, we've got some. Well, instantly, I see Celesteela Raichu. I know that's not what he picked first, but Celesteela and Raichu and screens, super solid. Who wants to start us off?
AJ, why don't you take it away?
Oh wow, I'm doing the honours.
Hmm.
All right, hope I do it justice, Tyler. I just think this is a super fun team. I mean, you've got Celesteela, probably one of the top S tiers to begin with. Very versatile
Queen
mon.
of Draft.
Yeah, exactly. Can be offensive, defensive, supportive, whatever you need it to be. You've got the Raichu in support as well. You've also got thick fat Snorlax, which can help with a little bit of that fire resist. And then a bulky water type in Suicune, probably one of the best to fill that role. With its utility, insane bulk, and then there's obviously like opportunities for you to maybe even use that as a weakness policy mon as well. Morgrim obviously does Morgrim stuff, is awesome, but then you've got this like perish trap theme going on with the remaining mons, which I absolutely love. You've got
Yeah, I
the
love
perish
it.
song with Gengar, you've got the two G-Max snakes, and then you've also got Grap locked. Like I just think it's super fun and super cool.
This will be one of the first times that I think a team has drafted a Perish Trap mode. At least in Johto specifically, because I'm trying to think back into seasons 1 and 2. I don't think anyone ever had a Perish Trap mode. I think this is
I
really
think the
interesting.
closest we came was like I know I had the ability to do Perish Trap last season. I didn't use it, and I know in season 1 we had a Lapras which attempted to use the Perish Trap. But
Okay.
yeah, I think you're right. Like this is the first time we've come across where it's quite notable that there is a strong possibility. Perish Trap might be a mode you have to prepare for, especially with this team's bulk. I mean, you've got Suicune, you've got Snorlax, you've got Celesteela. They're all bulky mons. Pair that with screens, Prankster screens from Morgrim. Like it gets so much more realistic that this could lead to a Perish Trap match.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah.
So obviously he was probably sniped from getting Politoed, who would have been the obvious addition to this team instead of the Suicune, right? That gets Perish Song. It's a rain mode for the Celesteela. It pairs well with the Raichu.
Oh yeah! Wow, that would have been tasty.
So I think that was really good. You guys have basically said all the positives that I would have said here. So if I had this team, I know Tyler, you're listening right now, and you're gonna hate this suggestion because I know you hate this Pokemon. But I really do think that you could still go for the rain mode. And I think you can switch you could switch Suicune for Pelipper. And I think you can also go for, like, instead of Latios, potentially Ludicolo. And being able to upgrade one of your D tier mons that way is also good. One mon that I was looking at is Pincurchin, who also gets the Lightning Rod. And potentially down the line, you can switch your Raichu to be the other Raichu, get that Surge Surfer, and stuff like that. Like some interesting stuff you could do with it. I know it's not like everybody's taste, and I don't think it's maybe your taste here, but getting Ludicolo on this team with the prankster swagger is really good.
I think I agree with that. I agree with Ludicolo. I think, as you say, I think it is missing. I think if this team had got that Politoed, then 100% needs Ludicolo because at the moment he's got an incomplete Fire Water Grass core and he's got an incomplete Fantasy core.
Yeah.
And I think having Ludicolo Rain, I know from experience how good Raichu, Celesteela, Ludicolo, and Politoed are. They are so good, such a good 4 core, and it's so easy to just bring those 4 to a match, and the opponent, even if they've prepped, will struggle.
Yeah, and like getting Pelipper here instead of, like, if you're giving away Suicune and Latios, you still get the Tailwind off it. Like, you're getting so much off that, so it's not a big deal.
Pelipper is a good mon. I just don't know if it's worth the tier it's in.
Yeah, probably not. But it performed really well last season, so that's why it's in that tier.
You get a better Trick Room setter with instead of Malamar, because what is Malamar really providing to this team?
I like Malamar. I think it's solid.
It can provide some strong offense that this team already likes. Like it's not got the strongest physical mode.
And it's got Contrary, and you pair that with the Morgrim, who can shoot like fake tears into it and stuff.
Oh,
just
wow,
boost.
That'd be really cool. Yeah, you're right.
So that was a combo as I was actually thinking about in the preseason to like potentially draft like Grims.
Wait,
I was thinking
does it work because of it's a dark type?
Oh yeah, I guess it wouldn't, huh? So yeah, maybe you think about upgrading Malamar. Definitely like if you take my suggestion, like you can upgrade Malamar into Pincurchin, who I think would be really good for this team as well. Just getting some anti-sleep.
Yeah, I think what this team also lacks a little bit is, you've got Graplocked, and I do like Graplocked. I think Graplocked could be pretty cool as a mon. I think it's underwhelming a lot of the time, but I feel like it's kind of missing like some. I think this team would benefit from coaching. I think coaching a V Sandaconda is a threat to be reckoned with. Snorlax could do with coaching as well, especially as it's a special wall. Celesteela can even be benefited from a fast coaching. So that's just my opinion. That's just something I look at and go, yeah, I could really do with coaching on this team. But yeah. I've moved on to the draft scores, and I can allow Bryan to elaborate more on his reasoning here because he's ranked this team as his number 4, AJ as number 7, Masenko is number 5, and I've actually only ranked it as number 9, even though it's got that solid Celesteela core that I love so much. I just feel
This is actually my number
I
1.
rated it as high as I think it was a lot. There was I think a lot of it was that Parish Trap the Parish Trap mode that we hadn't really seen like shot out the screen. Like, yeah, that's something that could potentially happen. Raichu, big fan of Raichu. Masenko believes it should be S tier, and perhaps if it does really well again this season, we'll put it up there next season. But I just think there's a lot of stuff that he can do, even outside of that Parish Trap core. If he does his, if he trades a little bit, I think it could be even a little bit better.
Yeah, as I say, the Firewater Grass core is incomplete. So is the Fantasy core. I think sometimes in the starter core, as I call it, you can sometimes sub out your grass type for an electric type, as long as you've got a way to hit those water types and stuff, and you've got a water type for the ground types. I think grass isn't always the most essential. So I think that's okay. He's definitely he's got some trick room answers, some good trick room answers, which is good because obviously Celesteela can be used in trick room, and he's got the Malamar and stuff, which can work there. He's got double Tailwind, but his speed tiers are a little bit varied. Like, you've got some really slow mons and some decently fast mons, but I'm not sure how much this team benefits from the dual Tailwind mode. Maybe more so than I give it credit for. You've got Morgrem plus Latios and Gengar, which is really good. Like, you've got the fake tiers with these glass cannon bit type attackers like Gengar and Latios. That's going to be doing big damage, and because Latios and Gengar already have high special attack, even with Celesteela, like just to get that extra bit of damage for Celesteela before it gets those beast boosts activated on it. So that's pretty good. And yeah, obviously the perish trapping. So that's just a brief summary of my notes for the team. Anything else to add, guys?
Well, in peace.
This was actually my number 1.
Oh, it's your number
just 'cause of
1.
the font. Yeah, the font makes it like a 7, but I put this in number
sorry,
1.
so sorry.
I think. No, it's okay. No, I think when I originally did the rankings, like for me, when I really look at it, I had everything. I think now, obviously, yeah, I can see the core aspect of it, particularly, maybe missing a dragon type more so than the grass type. But
yes, is there?
Yeah, it's the fantasy.
Oh, of
core.
course, yeah.
It's got a fantasy core, but like your fairy is more, you know.
Right. Yeah. Okay, I see. Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of it as well probably lent more into my rankings, but I just think it's super cool.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good team. I think it's as Masenko said, like it was a snipe away from being deadly.
Absolutely.
All right. I guess it's time we move on to the next team.
And we move on to a non-Johto player, but a UGA veteran nonetheless. We have Lucian Flash and his Far Rockaway Tyrannotars, or the Tyrantars, as his logo suggests.
Definitely a mouthful of a team there.
Yes,
mouthful of a team.
It's actually his original draft team name. He's rebranded since then. Like he's now known in most leagues I'm in as Rebellion, just Rebellion. And there's this running joke that we have that there's 3 different types of draft names. Team, 3 different names each team has for drafts, and it's either alliterative, sports themed, or Rebellion. just one word. But no, Lucian is a really strong battler. He's doing really well in another draft league I'm watching over at the moment, and he is the world's biggest Gudra stan, as you can see. So do you want to take it away, Masenko?
Yeah, sure. So some of the things that I really like about this team is I just think it's got good, solid, like power curve, right? At every level, there's a Pokemon that I'm looking at that I'm like, this was a good pick. Like this was a value pick, right? You got Blacephalon for B tier. You've got, Tentacruel and Mr. Mime. Like I actually really like Mr. Mime as a D tier mon. Like it's got fake out, it's got all sorts of stuff, great typing. I'm a little less sold on the Wigglytuff. But yeah, I mean, like you got a lot of good stuff going for this team. You got the synergy between Hitmonlee and Indeedee female, getting the Unburden proc there. You've got Froslass Tauros, which is a classic combo that we saw last season with Dr. Dave's team. Raikou, once again, excellent like value pick, right? Like every single one of these mons, except for maybe the Wigglytuff, I'm like, this is a bargain, right? Like I'm so excited for this, right?
Yeah. Like he went straight to the bargain section of Walmart the other day and just got all of these mons, and it's great.
You forget, Masenko, you can't spell Wigglytuff without GG.
You know what? I take it back. It's an excellent. Yeah.
What I like is I think Raikou really fits really well with some of the physically offensive Pokemon. Howell got boosted this generation, and it's kind of like a plus attack on both you and your opponent. I don't know if that's a buff or if that's always been the thing, but that's just something I noticed this generation. So I used that on one of my first just regular ladder teams, was like a Howell Raikou. And there's a lot of the physical attackers are slower than the Raikou, so it's just ready to get like a plus attack and go from there. So I think that's something to look at, that Raikou there. And it can't be flinched via fake out, so it's a free basically attack boost on your entire team.
Yeah, that's true.
I just don't see the he called himself the Goodra stand, but maybe help me out here with what's helping the Goodra here.
Oh, trust me.
I don't see I'm just thinking like there's not really the grassy glide.
Yeah, but Froslass gets Ice Shard, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, so it's a good type of Ice Shard. So there's stuff there. I think that's pretty strong. When it comes to, if you look at the team as a whole, it's a little bit interesting, I suppose. But Lucian, for some unknown reason, no matter what he's got, he can make anything work in a weird way. And he's not scared to just go, you know what, Choice Specs, Focus Blast. And it works. It just seems to work for him. So he's one of these players similar to like Dr. Dave, where I can't predict what Lucian will do. He'll come with these outlandish strats, but they're effective and they win. What I noticed with this team, does Raikou get Bulldoze? I'm pretty sure it does.
It should.
I will.
And the reason why I say that is because there's also potential for Raikou Bulldoze with Weakness Policy Tentacruel, which I think is pretty cool.
Or just...
It confirmed it does have Bulldoze.
Yeah, I thought so. So it's got an Inner Focus Mon with Bulldoze, which is fast, with a Clear Body Mon with Weakness Policy. So that's a decent mode there. He's got Tyranitar, but he has no Sand Abuser. But I don't think that's a bad thing, because it just means that this he can run Tyranitar as more of less of a support, and more as a threat. And it pairs well with Indeedee.
The Unnerve.
Yeah, the Unnerve. It pairs well with Indeedee. Just being able to set up and do damage, and it's actually able to max. It's not just going to die from the first fighting type move that comes onto the field because of Indeedee's there. I do think the Blacephalon is a little bit weird. It's not really got the best of partners. That's just, I don't know. To me, I think Blacephalon's just a little bit weak. And I don't know how else to really say that. I don't really know what I mean. I don't know how to explain what I mean by that.
I mean, Masenko put on a clinic on how to get rid of Cephalon last season against Dark Lords. So.
Sucker Punch dies. But to be fair, he does have redirection. So the Blacephalon is supported by Indeedee to an extent, and it's got a strong special attack. He has incomplete cores, so he's got no grass type, but he has Raikou. So I have said, like I've said before, it's okay. He's got ways around it. And yeah, he's got no steel type, and that I think is what really is for me lets the team down a little bit. You know, when I was saying before, where there's a lot of these mons that are quite samey, like these dark ghost, fairy, normal, all them type of types. He's got psychic normal, normal fairy, fairy psychic, ghost fighting, ghost ice. They're all samey types. You know?
Yeah. This actually reminds me of Dr. Dave's team last season. I mean, obviously the is there, but he also has the Indeedee as well, and it's very similar, and it's very like, I don't know. For me, this was definitely one of the harder ones to think about potential trades for, because I just don't know like what direction to take it. I think there's a lot of possible directions, but like a lot of them will require more than just a couple trades to go towards, you know. Like I think the biggest thing here is that he has an enormous steel, ground, and fairy weakness, just like all three of them. Like steel weakness in the form of Mr. Mime, Wigglytuff, Tyranitar, Frostlass, ground weakness, like ground weakness in Tyranitar, Raikou, Blacephalon, Tentacool. Yeah, like there's so much of the same weaknesses around too, and it's just it's like super hard to deal with them, and there's no resistances for the ground type.
But yeah, and this is where I think grass really is important, and the fact that he hasn't got one. Like grass, one of grass type mon's few jobs is resist ground. You know.
Exactly. A Pokemon that I'm always really like for sand teams in particular is, and this is one that I recommended to Bryan last time and worked out well for him, was Mandibuzz. Gets overcoat, so you don't get the residual damage, but like at least you get some ground immunity there, and so that's a potential option. You know, trade I don't know, Blacephalon for that, or once again, this was really hard for me because like part of me wanted to trade away the Indeedee potentially, but like obviously that's good with Tyranitar, but I don't know, it's just everything seemed to synergize kind of, but then also
not
like it kind of hurts itself in various.
No, that's exactly how I feel about it. It's really weird. Like there's some good parts to it, but in the same vein, it kind of it anti-synergizes with itself, and it's kind of, the team's weird. I hope Lucian can show us how good it is, but I've ranked it as my 12th best team. I know Masenko, you've got it as down here as number 13, Bryan as 12, and AJ as 14. So we seem to all be in this same idea that it could be better.
Yeah. It needs some work, but yeah, I mean, like if you're saying that he just makes these things work, then this is the team for it, right? You know, this is someone who could just, you know, mad scientist their way to victory.
Oh, trust me, he is mad. That is something he is. I do look forward to seeing him run havoc with the Tyranitar and Goodra though again. I mean, they're both solid mons, and I think he could run pretty a Lucian thing, which he's got these mons which are super solid, and all these support mons he's got are kind of weird, but they will work exactly how he needs them to work each week. So yeah, it'll be. I'm really looking forward to Lucian's games in this upcoming season. So, anyone else's thoughts on the matter?
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah, nothing more. I actually, in my original calculations, I didn't give it enough justice for some of those synergy combos you've just mentioned. So yeah, that was definitely like even like the bulldoze into tentacle. Like yeah, that's really really cool. So yeah, it has potential, but yeah, for the reasons mentioned, like I actually when I first looked at it, I didn't realize why Tyranitar was there. But yeah, it has obviously some potential, like you say, to not just be a support, to be a carry. It desperately lacks that steel type, doesn't it?
It does. But at the same time,
if
it's weak to ground. Maybe
yeah,
Corviknight.
well, I was just looking at Corviknight, believe
Yeah.
it or not,
Yeah.
which for me instantly I'm like, get rid of the Tyranitar, but that was just my first thought. That would be a straight swap, but
Or if you want to budget, Corviknight, you add Skarmory.
Skarmory.
Honestly, Lucian is one of those players I can think would be able to make it work.
Skarmory, yeah.
And Skarmory is a great mon.
He doesn't have Tailwind either.
Nah,
And his
who needs
trick
it?
room isn't the best. His trick room answers aren't the best. So it's weird. It's got a lot, but it's got nothing at the same time.
Yeah, hang on. I was saying, yeah, could you work? I mean, wait, is Blacephalon in the same tier as Ferrothorn?
It's a tier lower.
Ah, right. Because I was just saying, like, obviously it doesn't resist ground, but I've got it in the type chart here that this team has an overall net rock, steel, and fairy weakness. So something like Ferrothorn.
Yeah.
Could.
I mean, if you drop like, I mean, I know he would never do this, but if you drop like Gudra and one of the C tiers, and then pick up Skarmory, which is a D tier, and then you can pick up, I don't know, like Kartana or something.
Oh,
like that seems fine. You have Indeedee with it, like that's partly a good thing, right?
Burning Jealousy and Heat Wave. No. Kartana can't be saved. Kartana cannot be saved.
But you have Tyranitar to pair with it, and that's a pretty great combo. Right? Like, I don't know. Seems fine, but he's not going to drop the Gudra. He loves the Gudra.
100% not. 100% not dropping the Gudra.
I wouldn't pick it up without.
I think this team has potential to do really good, like a good solid matches. I think what we'll find is that there'll be certain matches that this team does really well against, and then other matches that he's just like
full splat.
Yeah. So, again, it's one of the teams I'm most looking forward to see play. I also like the fact that he's got Mr. Mime. There was a reason for it. I think the support it can give is pretty good. And it can go with, if I'm not mistaken, I noticed something about this team where it's able to get a weakness policy off into Indeedee. And I don't remember how it does it. I think Mr. Mime gets like Sucker Punch or something. Yeah, Mr. Mime gets Sucker Punch.
Maybe
Mr. Mime can Sucker Punch Indeedee for weakness policy Indeedee for expanding forces, then with Mr. Mime. So I think that's a pretty solid pairing. But yeah, okay. We move on to the Midland Marowaks, another staple of the UGA, but he comes from, I think he played in Howell last season. So yeah, this is a interesting draft.
Certainly is.
I've actually already got some picks that I would suggest myself, like suggest for him to make, but for trades, just to get that out there. Who wants to start us off, or should I start us off?
It's missing it's missing a legendary genie. It's missing it. Just get it there, and the team's perfect.
Collect them all.
Yeah. I mean, this team's it's got some stuff. It's certainly like, I mean, he first picked Lopunny, which is definitely a very interesting first pick. I definitely don't think I would have first picked that. I think it was
the pick immediately after Dark Lord, so I guess they were both kind of just going for the
I can
justify
Manectric first pick, but I don't know about Lopunny personally, but it's a good mon, and I think he should definitely keep it on the team. It gives a lot of option. Obviously, I'm a fan of Talonflame. I'm a fan of Thundurus. I'm a fan of Swampert, especially with the Talonflame. Like that is such a good pairing because otherwise you'd have two electric weaknesses with a regular water type. But Obviously, Swampert is immune.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. I think Tangrowth is a fine pairing as well. So the Fire Water Grass core here seems good.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, but okay. So here's the thing. There's just so many mons on this team that I'm like, why are you here?
Yes.
Yeah, what are you doing here? Like
Mhm.
Rabombi, for instance. Like,
I think
as much as I
Rabombi is
love her,
a bad fit for this team.
yeah, Rabombi is good for trick room teams. Really, it's a mon that gets immune to fake out, and you can speed swap it into some stuff. And it's in general a very good typing for trick room teams who generally have certain types that work well with it. And this is not a trick room team. I don't even. He gets Orbeetle, but that's not a mon that wants to click trick room most of the time.
Yeah. Orbeetle is more of his trick room counter, as
Yeah,
well
it
as
can improve.
Taunt Thunderous and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
Switcheroo
Yeah.
AV.
Right.
But no, I agree with what you're saying. Like, there's a few mons on here which is just like Rabombi. It's like as soon as I saw him make that pick, I went, "Why has he just done that?" You've got your team is really weak to rock already. It's not helping. It's also increasing your fire weakness, and yeah, I think Rabombi's just a poor fit for the team. I'm not a big fan of the Electivire. I think Swampert is, in a way, is good for the team, but also it's taking away from your resistances to ice. Like he's not got any ice resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Like not a single mon on this team resists ice because he doesn't have a steel type and his water type is a part ground. So yeah, on one hand he's got Nova mons weak to grass, so Swampert fits well. But because he doesn't have this ice resistance, it's not the strongest of teams.
You
In that
you
sense.
nailed it in one actually, because all three of my trades that I propose in are ice resistant.
I've got some trades to
Yeah.
propose as well. So, but just to go through a little bit more, some really cool things I think is I really like double genies. I think the double genies are really good. Yeah, they're both weak to ice, like we just said about. Oh yeah, just to mention as well, his fire type also doesn't resist ice because it's a part flying. I really like the double genies because you're able to they support each other really well in my opinion. He does have a bit. He doesn't really have a trick room mode, and he has a weak answer to trick room mode. Trick room. I think the Poltergeist next to Tangrowth, great shell smash. That's really good. And I think something he is missing at the moment is just this sucker punch, sucker punch or shadow sneak to activate to really take advantage of weak armor weakness policy Poltergeist.
Mm-hmm.
But he does have a really strong fast mode, if nothing else, with that Talonflame and the genies.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So
Yeah,
what are those trades you were talking about?
So I think he should find a way to find some sort of budget pick. And I was you mentioning that you like the genie pairings. I think it's good too. But to cut down on the ice weakness, I did for my proposal drop the Landorus down a tier for something. Probably a water type like Milotic, for instance. An
Funny
extra
you
water
say
type.
that. Funny you say that.
Really, is that your trade as well for Milotic?
Not exact, but I do. That's so. One of my trades that I suggest. I've got three trades to suggest, and one of them is just a direct trade for Swampert for Milotic.
Oh, sure. Okay, fantastic. The other two trades that I think is good if you can get 10 more points somehow, while getting an extra water type for the team, or kind of finagling a little bit. If you drop Rabombi and Orbeetle, you can pick up Ninetales Alola and Sandslash Alola, and that pairing is actually really really good. And you actually cover I think everything with that. I think you don't have any weaknesses outstanding if you do those three. Because Sandslash gives you that steel typing, and then the Ninetales Alola replaces the fairy typing that you'd lose from picking up Rabombi, and you get a really nice little synergy mode there.
What tier is Sandslash and Ninetales? Is any of them in C tier?
Yeah, Sandslash is in C tier.
Ninetales is A, and then I think Sandslash is D.
I found where you get your direct trade. You get rid of Electivire.
Oh, sure.
I
mean,
think
that's-
Electivire is a bit redundant on this team. I think it should have picked a little bit too early.
Flying weakness in that case. But other than that, I think you're good. Or some steel. I don't know. I'd need to double check it. But no, if you get another water type, you're good.
With the traits Masenko suggested, you cover everything except for you have an overall rock weakness, only covered by Swampert.
Yeah.
Okay, so my suggestions, it's not the best. They're not the best, but I think that swapping Swampert for Milotic is really good because you can pair that with G-Max Gravitas with Orbeetle. Like you get the Hypnosis spam. That's really fun.
Yeah.
I think that's just one reason, but I think Milotic is really solid. Like it's just super solid special defense stat, which pairs well with the Tangrowth's high defense stat. You know, I think you could probably do a direct trade. I'm not 100% sure, but isn't Scrafty in C tier or is it in B tier?
In B tier.
B tier. Yeah, well, I know that there's a way you can do it where you can get Scrafty in place of one of those. So I think Scrafty would be good on this team.
Hey, if Dark Lord trades away Scraggy, you can also pick that up.
True. I think Scrafty would be really good for the team, and I think Togedemaru over Rubombi to get that steel type, which will also help protect the Talonflame and the Milotic newly picked up from electric type attacks.
That's pretty good.
So I really like that. So hopefully we see it. Hopefully we see some trades for this team. I think this team is really in need of some trades. You can kind of. I actually think Tyrantrum's a pretty solid mon in D tier. I know it's a little bit out there on this team, but like head smashes, oof. And I think it's really well supported by
Rockhead head smashes. Excuse me, Rockhead head smashes. So it's all the positives of head smash being like a 150 base stab move without the huge incredible recoil.
Yeah, and this is what I like is the fact that you've got the priority Tailwind with Talonflame, and Tyrantrum to me is in the same vein as like Darmanitan. It comes out in the field, is a little bit slower, and really benefits from like Tailwind, and just clicks a move and just blasts holes.
Yep.
And Tyrantrum is good at that, but it needs the speed support, which this team offers. So I think that's really good. Also, it does solid work into those ice types that are super effective against the whole team, even though it's super effective against Tyrantrum itself. Just hit it harder and faster, you'll be fine. So yeah, the rankings for these teams, I've given it a 13. I know trades are going to be made, but that's just what I've given. I've already gone over my reasons. Masenko has given it 11, Bryan 11, and AJ a 10.
Yep. Any final thoughts?
No, I'm good.
Nope. Pretty set on that one. Okay.
Cool.
We move on to the Pacific Slow Bros. Really strong player. Really strong player. Without looking at the team, he is possibly one of the best draft players that I've played against. And he's really well versed in how draft works. He's really knowledgeable. He's great at making plays and stuff. Solid team builder. And he just always seems to do well. And I mean top 2 level well. What are your thoughts on the team?
I think it's a very cool team. There's a lot of hidden synergy here. Like I think I think he and I feel like he has a similar drafting style to me where I like to pick a lot of really flexible mons. All of these mons you can think of in like various different circumstances that don't necessarily are, one track mind. You have Dragapult, obviously, who's incredibly versatile. You have Coco, you have Inteleon, you have Mr. Mime Galar, who is ironically actually a very good mon in my opinion. is good. I think Moltres sticks out again to me, but after last season, maybe I'll give it a little bit more credit.
Moltres is a Johto champion, I'll have you know.
Yeah, it is. It's it's good for this team, definitely. I think it's in the right team, if anything.
I think it fits better in this team than it did on mine.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think as part of the core that he has going for the Fire, Water, Grass core, it's good.
I think it's a solid Fire, Water, Grass core. One of the better ones.
Yeah, so that's, overall my thoughts are like, everything here can do something cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have Guru, who can set up a whole bunch of random stuff. You have the terrain synergy with the Unburdened Thievul.
Yeah.
You have beat up for Mudsdale on Thievul, who can, boost its defense. And Dragapult, yep. You can surf with the Dragapult to activate weakness policy with the Mudsdale.
Mm-hmm.
You can also do like Aqua Jet,
weakness policy,
or even Ice Shard.
Inteleon.
Inteleon. There we go. There's the word. Into like
Aqua Jet
there.
Yeah.
Aqua Jet and Moltres. Yeah.
There's a lot this team can do.
Right into Tapu Bulu. There's a Ice Shard into Dragapult. There's a lot of stuff. A lot of creativity behind this team.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of screen support for the Mudsdale or the Moltres. Like Moltres is good and it can be good, but it's a little bit. It could really benefit from like screen support, which this team offers in plenty. Even though there's not like Prankster support. I think the fact that you could have two terrains, like we've seen, that was one of the better points of Bioptic's team last season, where he had two terrains he could run at any time. I think electric terrain and grassy terrain are pretty good. I think the Thievul really supports the Tapu Koko, especially with the fact that Tapu Koko isn't always the most offensive special attacker, but with Thievul's fake tears and stuff, you can be. I think Aggron's a solid defensive piece, especially when it's got paired up with two fairies, two ghost type. Like there's a lot of help in that regards. Dragapult, we already know, is like one of the better draft mons of the format. You've got Sucker Punch from Inteleon, or Ice Shard from Inteleon, or Ice Shard from Mr. Mime to help it, which is really good again. I don't think that one gets Screen Cleaner, does it? That's Mr. Rhyme who gets it.
No, let me check.
No, it's this one.
No, I think they both get Screen Cleaner.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, so there's always that as well. What I really like as well is the fast water type and the fast electric type. So you've got the ability to run Soak Inteleon and just fire off like max lightnings or max overgrowths with both his Tapus.
Yep.
So yeah, I really like this team. I think like just me listening off now how much versatility this team has, and yeah, we've got Heracross as well, but we ignore that. I think Heracross can be good. I do think it can be good. I've tried. It just depends on the team and the matchup. But we've got a solid Fire, Water, Grass core. I think you've got a really solid fantasy core, to be honest. Like,
yeah,
I think he's got the best two set of cores. So like, he's not weak with either one or the other. I think he's got the best of. Might not be the individual best, but together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like this team a lot. I think, I kind of think that there's not a whole lot I could say in terms of trades. It does have an outstanding fairy weakness, I believe. So what I thought of, which is kind of silly, but maybe not exactly what he wants, but maybe something to consider is, if you have two of the Tapus, why not trade Dragapult and grab the third Tapu Fini for this team and slap a Togedemaru instead of the Mr. Mime Galar, and that'll actually shore up that fairy weakness right quick. You lose your dragon type, but who cares? You have 3 Tapus, right?
It's scientifically proven that 3 Tapus equals a dragon.
Exactly.
Oh dear. It's just unfortunately can't collect the 4th. It's on another team.
Yeah. Unless
no,
he kills.
So yeah, we've got
Make a
the
trade, Matrix. You can make a trade during the grace period for the 2 other Tapus. Why not?
So we've got the draft scores at the moment, and we'll get to AJ's opinions a little bit more in depth in a second as well. I've given it a 2. I don't need to really. I've given it. It's my second favorite team of the season. I just really like it. I think it's a team that I would use, and I think for that, it's just so synergy. It's just a lot I can do. Masenko, you've given it a 5. Bryan, you've given it a 10, and AJ, you've given it a 6.
There was actually a mistake in terms of the rankings. I gave accidentally pasted Tyler and Otto's team as number 5 together for me. But at the end of the day, I put Tyler as number 4. So this is correct. This is my number 5. I just
okay. So
I noticed that. Yeah.
No worries. No worries. So yeah, AJ, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, for everything that's already been said, it's awesome. Some really quick and some slow options like speed control is great. Synergy, like we said, is amazing. Yeah, in terms of top like apart from maybe I don't know Heracross, but then Heracross gets great coverage. Like pretty good value for your picks. And flexible mons that can work well together. So yeah, I rated this very high.
I may have underestimated some of his synergy stuff. So maybe in a different universe, I ranked it a little higher. But
I think personally,
or no, it's not. It's 200. Yeah.
I was just gonna say I like Pizza more than do Heracross, but Heracross gets the coverage, so if he swapped it out, he'd lose the fairy weakness, but he'd gain an overall rock one. So
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I really like I like Heracross as a mon, so I'm really excited to see what the Slowbros can do with it. I've seen his type of prep. I mean, just this last week he's played Lucian in another draft league, and it is a Series 10 draft league, and he lost due to some unfortunate hacks, but he brought round, he brought a team of round.
Ooh.
So he brought
nice.
he brought Indeedee with round. He brought Liquid Voice Primarina with round. And he brought another mon with round. And he really only lost due to some like fake out into the Zapdos got static. And then full parried, and then he some of the mons living on 1 HP, and there was some flinches. There was a lot of RNG that disrupted the game. But my point being is like he can come up with some really creative stuff, and I'm really excited.
Agreed. Looks interesting.
Okay, so we move on from the specific Slowbros, and we've got the Trenton Typhlosions.
Beginning our new additions to the Johto division this season.
Yeah, and the new players to the UGA. I recognize, guys, if you're still with us, we are. This is taking a while, but don't worry about it. I'm sure most of you will skip through to your parts anyway, so it's not the end of the world. But yeah, we move on now to one of the newest additions to the UGA, Trenton Typhlosions. He's got Coalossal G-Max.
yeah, Whimsicott.
Not a lot to help it.
Yeah, there's he's got Whimsicott and he's got Coalossal, and he's got Vanillux and Garchomp, and these all don't work together. They work with other stuff that can make them really powerful, but yeah, they don't work together, unfortunately.
The biggest issue I can see with this team is it's so weak to fire.
Oh yeah, super weak to fire.
It's so weak to fire. He's got Tangler, Vanillux, Scizor, Whimsicott, Shedinja, and Shedinja doesn't really want to be on a team where it shares a common weakness with half the team.
And you don't really want Shedinja in a max format because anything can just slap an ice move and not even target the Shedinja, and it's gonna go down
Die.
to its focus dash, and then the next turn it's gonna go down to the
Well,
hail.
Yeah, not even that. Like, the Shedinja, the Shedinja is on the same team as his Hail. He has the
Yeah.
Hail that will kill his own Shedinja. I assume he's not going to bring them both together, unless he runs safety goggles on the Shedinja. But yeah, it's just
It's
there
rough.
doesn't seem to be any
Maybe-
synergy, and I think
Maybe.
this,
No, keep going.
there just seems to be good mons without their pairings. You've got a Hail setter without an Hail abuser. You've got Garchomp without sand type thing. Okay, you can do Garchomp other ways. You've got Coalossal with no way to proc it outside of Surf
Well, Surf
Garchomp.
Quagsire, but that's
Yeah,
not
well,
reliable.
or Surf Quagsire, Surf Garchomp, and so it's got no Aqua Jet users. It's got it. It just
The
it's got
lightning rod
Pikachu
on
G-Max.
Pikachu isn't
Yeah,
isn't protecting anything from
anything.
electric because Quagsire is part ground. It's already immune to electricity.
Yeah.
You've got Ditto. Maybe he plans on using the other person's mons.
Yeah. Ditto's fun though. I don't think Ditto's a bad
Ditto
pick for-
isn't the issue with this team.
yeah, Ditto is a good mon.
Ditto's not the issue of this team. It's like the addition of everything else seems to be the problem.
These are mostly good mons. Like
Yeah, they're
I think
good mons.
Shedinja is one of them ones that are dubious, but the rest of them are like solid, right? So it really,
Yeah.
I think this is a team that's gonna really benefit from the mid-season trades because they might want to make quite a few of them just to make some like a really strong team.
Yeah.
I have some trades to just help with the fire weakness.
Go for it.
Yeah, I would trade away Vanillux, I'd trade away Tangela, and I'd trade away Shedinja, obviously. The three I would pick for it is so this was tough, and I think I actually shore up the weaknesses with this, if I'm not mistaken. Mantine can go on this team instead of Tangela. It is the flying water type that Pikachu can protect. It gets Tailwind as well as the Whimsicott. And it's overall like a pretty underrated mon, I'd say. It's like decent. I like trading Vanillux for Toxtricity. Toxtricity with Tailwind is an excellent addition. And you've got some okay synergy for it overall. And then instead of Shedinja, I like the idea of adding Rapidash Galar to it. You get a Trick Room Imprison mon on the team to stop that because it doesn't really look like this team really wants Trick Room that much. But you do have Coalossal, who works well into Trick Room if you don't bring it with Steam Engine. So you could do that. But also, it just adds a little bit more value to the team than Shedinja does. I used it last time. Good typing. And I think that covers the weaknesses. It doesn't really do much for the team, and I don't think there's really much you can do for it right now with just 3 trades, without adding more weaknesses or less. But yeah, so I think this is a team that's going to need some work. It's going to need some work, but it's got good ones.
Another issue I've got with the team is if you just look at the right side, ignore Shedinja, they've all got 4 times weaknesses.
Yeah.
You've got Quagsire and Garchomp both weak to freeze dry or grass and ice. You've got Coalossal with 2 4 times weaknesses of water and ground. You've got Scizor 4 times weak to fire. Whimsicott 4 times weak to poison. Buzzwole 4 times weak to flying. And half of those cover and hit Shedinja anyway. And then all of those mons who have 4 times weaknesses, well, you got ground and fire, and then you've just hit in Pikachu, Tangela, and Vanillux. So I feel like you can just run maybe 3 or 4 coverage moves and be fine against this team, like in terms of there's no real checks for their own weaknesses.
Right.
as it stands.
Like I said, just slap like an ice beam or a rock slide
Well, not
or
rock
a-
slide, but yeah. Like ice beam,
or a
fire,
earthquake or
ice, fire, grass, and flying, and you're good.
yeah.
That's one really like the AoE fire.
Yeah.
Heat wave users, I suppose. Yeah, it's
So
it's okay, and I think like overall, like you've identified mons. If you're listening to this, you've identified mons that are definitely good Pokemon. And you, but the trick with doubles is always the synergy, and always being aware of like. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's synergy is such a loaded word. You know, there's so much to it, but that's one of the biggest tricks of doubles and draft league is finding synergy between mons. Unfortunately, there's just not here.
I think I've just moved on to the draft score. Blanket statement: the four of us independently have scored it as 16, the lowest. But I think this team doesn't know what it wants to do, and I feel like taking half of the mons that you've got and getting rid of the other half, or like mid-season, I'm talking, and focusing on one route is better than what this team seems to be, like a mix and match of loads of different modes and loads of different mons without the correct supports.
Right.
I don't mean to be harsh. Sorry if it sounds it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I think
Like it could be improved. I think if he picks like two Pokemon or something that he tries to build around, uses real 3 solid trades in the grace period, maybe even 2 or something, and then during the break week when we get the unlimited trades, just really go havoc with the team and drop a lot of the things. Like he's probably gonna not have like several Pokemon that he hasn't even brought in the first 4 weeks, and those could be really prime targets as Pokemon that could potentially be traded away during your unlimited trading week. So.
What tier is Shedinja in?
D tier.
What tier is Quillfish in?
D tier.
Did you suggest Quillfish?
I didn't suggest it, no, but it could be good. I think I was looking at it actually, but
I'm just thinking like cheap Aquajet mons, to be honest, and that's the first thing that came to mind. I know they're both weak to ground, so it's obviously not the best, like the definitive mode, but like at least it's something a little bit better, you know. I think I prefer to see a Quillfish on this team than Shedinja, you know.
I agree.
Anyway,
yeah, I guess Intimidate. So
it gets some interesting tech, but we digress. We move on.
I think I just want to mention, like
Go for it.
Yeah, all of this advice, is obviously done with the best intentions. I really want to see you guys succeed, make good trades, and all the guys here are very much passionate about that. Obviously in VGC, synergy is key. One idea you might like, and I guess some people like, is they pick one mon and then try and build a few mons around it, or just pick one mon that you like and then try and pick the support options. So for example, like if you're really keen on Coalossal, then maybe you can trade Garchomp for like Dragonite. Dragonite gets Aquajet, can support it a little bit better. But if you really like Garchomp, then maybe you could draft Hippopotas, Hippowdon rather. Yeah, exactly, and go with like a sand theme. So yeah, it's basically the trades Masenko suggested. Yeah, they net out the weaknesses, but it doesn't really give the team identity. And I think that's what you've got to figure out for yourself. Like, what do you want this team to be about?
Yeah,
I'd actually almost prefer Gigalith with the Garchomp than Hippowdon. So the weaknesses again.
Yeah, that's why I say. That's why I said Gigalith. I was like, oh, Gigalith, that works really well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I definitely agree with AJ here. Pick a mon that you like,
Has
and
Gastrodon been
then
picked yet?
try to build around it.
I guess Round
No.
could be on this team.
Gashon would fit on this team.
Yeah, Gashon's available.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's actually a lot of good mons that you may need more than the 3 trades first up, and so you might need the mid-season. But like, there's a lot of good mons out there that can easily support a lot of these mons that you've got. So let's move on
Yeah.
to the MK Mimikyus.
Who's
This is another team that has that potential to perish trap with Shadow Tag,
yeah, Shadow Tag and
Gotharita,
and Polytoad.
Gotharita with Perish song, Polytoad, and then you have that denial of priority with the Serena there.
Mhm.
So, and then there's even a little bit of a rain mode with the Regieleki and the Armaldo.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of good stuff in this team.
Yeah, what I really like is I really hope that they use Durant as not just a max target, but because I think Durant has so much more potential as a support, a fast support.
Yeah,
That's
it's
just
coach.
that's just does it?
I think so. Maybe not. I need to check.
It's one of those mons I think it can provide a similar role to any of the other fast support mons that I can think of. Like it can go Struggle Bug, which is just a different version of Snarl. It gets Rock Tomb, which is another form of speed control. It gets Beat Up. Okay, fine, it doesn't have a Beat Up mon on this team, but my point being is that Durant, it can be a lot more than just a hustle max target.
It can
Which obviously
entrain Truant into something.
it can, and
Into an
obviously this
opponent.
team is built so that Polytoad can activate the rain to help the Durant. Not sure how much that really helps it because it's still a Durant.
Right.
But you've got I think Polytoad, Armaldo, and Regieleki surprisingly actually work well together. And Serena is really good for this team for Regieleki because of what Regieleki loves is hitting hard, hitting first. And priority is one way of getting around that. But with Serena, you can't, you know? And it also covers Regieleki's weakness of ground. So I think that's really solid. I think the Trick Room team is... I like it. I don't dislike it. I don't know what your guys' opinions are on it. Obviously, you got the Graffiti.
I don't like that it's Gotharita.
I don't know. I like Gotharita.
I like Gotharita a
I
lot.
think it's really good.
Yeah. I tend to
Jump down
like
Brian's
it.
throat.
Sorry. Yeah, I have some ideas for this team that I think would make it super solid. I think the Trick Room's okay, but I think Turtonator definitely doesn't stand out as somebody that I really like for the team in general. One C tier that I think fits really well with Zarina that hasn't been picked is Fletchender. Because you get that priority Tailwind up without it being able to be faked out. And you got a lot of Mons on here who really benefit from Tailwind, like Mamoswine, right? And with like Alchemy as well. And some Mons, so you lose your Dragon type in favor of a Flying type, right? And if you want a Dragon type that is decent under Trick Room, I was thinking maybe even Drudigon in D tier that you could swap for Spiritomb, who I don't think is doing much for this team.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I would agree. I don't like the Spiritomb on the team.
Spiritomb's not doing much for it, so I think Drudigon is a pretty cool one. And then as a final trade, since you've downgraded, did we downgrade? No. Where am I getting these points from then? Oh. Okay.
Wasn't this the team that had 10 points left over?
Yes, that's where I got it from. That's where I got it from. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'd upgrade the Durant, actually. I think I like Durant, but I would upgrade the Durant to a Registeel. Registeel on this team is super solid. You got some good bulldozers to activate weakness policy for it. It's good under Tailwind and under Trick Room. You got all sorts of options with Registeel, I think, more than Durant here. And that kind of shores up the weaknesses as well.
I think one of the only other issues I've got with the team is it outside Regieleki and Politoed, it doesn't really have any special offense. Like Durant, Beware, Almaldo, Mamoswine, Serena, all physical. Alchemy is
I think
special, but you use it as
Turtonator just
Turtonator
needs setup
needs
and
Turtonator, yeah, it needs some sort of setup, either Shell Smash, or it needs
policy.
Weakness Policy activating. Alchemy is obviously a massive enabler, but it's not going to be doing too much itself in terms of offense, I don't think, on this team. Alchemy does offer a lot of scary threats for Mamoswine, especially. Like Mamoswine with Decorate could be really deadly.
I think
as well.
Turtonator benefits from a Trick Room setter that can bulldoze. So
Yeah,
I know
agree with
it's
that. I agree with that.
downgrading, but Bronzor might be able to help it out a little bit with that if they really wanted to use the Turtonator. That's just the main way I've seen Turtonator used successfully.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of good things to this, but sorry, AJ.
No. I think it could just benefit from shoring up its speed control a little bit. Can anyone on the team currently like Airstream? Can Almaldo Airstream?
Serena can.
Yeah, Zarina.
Politoed can.
Okay.
I wouldn't advise it because it's bounce, but
Yeah.
can. Belly drum
I know.
Politoed.
Yeah, Regieleki obviously like is a great form of speed control, but yeah,
I get what you're saying.
It's on the slower end of teams without that sort of immediate tailwind that maybe a Fletchender could help provide something.
I think Alecki gets bounce as well, and that's base 100.
Yeah, at that point it's easier just you going for Electro Web.
Yes.
Electro Web can miss though.
Wide lens, 99% accurate. Don't be that 1%. No, I think this team as a whole, it's got some good stuff going. It just falls a little bit short in certain aspects.
Yeah.
As you say though, Jedi, this is something I've just checked my notes now. Yeah, like I think this team could really do with a airstream, like a stab airstream.
Right.
So yeah, we've got the draft scores. I've ranked it. It's at number 11, Masenko 14, Bryan 13, and AJ at 12. Basically, we're all around the same idea here for this team.
Yep. Let's try to get it moving a little bit more. We've been at it for 2.5 hours already, so
yeah, it's fine. We move on to the old English Eiscue. A good friend of mine, Gurt, here for the Gurt, not for the singles. Great singles player. Won many leagues, I think. Anyway, he's done really well from what I've watched in singles. But he's not just a singles player. He's a really good VGC player. I really dig this team.
Same.
I think it's really good.
Same.
So I suppose I could start us off. The first thing I really like, dual Frisk. Dusknoir and Noivern. Like in draft, knowing the opponent's sets or just the items upon starting the match is so useful. You don't have to spend half your time going, well, is it this item? Is it that item? You just like, well, it's that item. There we go. Move on. This is my plan to answer this now.
It really, just on that point, it really like also both mons like they tap into both ends of the speed. Mm-hmm. Like so, if you wanted to do like a fast mode, then also Noivern is great at enabling that. You get that Frisk. If you were going for a slow, more Trick Room style mode, you get that Frisk. Yeah. Like that's something I found last season. If you only have one of the Frisk users, sometimes you can't always get it out to begin with, depending on what you're intending to do. But that covers both ends.
Yeah, I agree. Another thing I really like is you've got this Togekiss. Togekiss, obviously, is the princess of draft, as I refer to it as. Super versatile draft mon, one of the best ones around. Follow me. It can run so many different types of sets. It can be offensive. It can be defensive. It can be support. It can be crit kiss. It's just so much things it can do. You can pair it with a lot of these mons as well, like to allow like Trick Room to be set. I think there's at least one Trick Room setting. I wouldn't say, yeah, Dusknoir, of course there is. Like he's got a solid Trick Room mode, and what I really like is the plethora of options for Arcanine's beat up mode.
Yeah. A lot of beat up options, and I actually, just like you guys, I love this team. Very, very strong. One of my highest rated out of the group. I would make one trade to get a grass type on the team.
I do agree. It could do with a grass type, yeah.
And the one trade I would suggest is, and this is not a mon that I am usually suggesting to anybody, but I think it's actually pretty good on this team, which is Shift Tree.
I knew you were going to say Shift Tree. No.
Shift Tree for Starmie. I think it's actually really good for this team because you get another beat up user. You already have 3 others, but fourth doesn't hurt. You get another fake out user, which is great. It's a grass type, dark type, something that you don't have yet. And you have several people who can set Sun from their maxes, like Arcanine, like Togekiss, and Chlorophyll will help out with that. So overall, like if you run just like a decent grass type for D tier pick, I don't think Starmie is really doing much for the team. Go for Shift Tree. Why not? Like I think it's just decent.
I hate Shift Tree. That's reason enough. I love Magneton. I think Magneton's great. Really happy Magneton's on the team. And Kangaskhan. I can't move on from this team without mentioning Kangaskhan.
I agree.
Yeah.
It is such a good mon. To think at one point it was put in tier 4, and now it's all the way up there in the B tier.
Yep.
It does so much. To me, it embodies a great draft mon.
Well, it's Mama Kanga had her last season, and I wish Gurt luck.
It's the only scrappy fake outer, but if you don't want to fake out that ghost type Trick Room setter, you can just circle throw it. It's one thing you can do.
It has 3 really good abilities.
It does. And people underrate like how good Early Bird is. But having Early Bird as well as another Overcoat mon in Escavalier, even though he doesn't have Grass type, really helps with that sleep modes that like some of the Spore users and the Sleep Powder mons that this league has at the moment.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so we move on to the rankings. So just to point out, so I've ranked it at number 5. I think it's a super solid team. And to be fair, I probably can't really suggest much more you could probably do with this team. Masenko is ranked at 6, Bryan has ranked it at 6, and AJ has ranked it at 5. It's just an amazing Trick Room mode. Could do with a grass type, probably, especially could do with a grass type, I suppose. Lots of beat-up users. One thing I will say though is it does lack an obvious weakness policy proc for Togekiss.
Yeah, that's true.
No Ice Shard. No, it does get.
Yeah,
you get
Volt
Switch, but like you'd have to run like Scarf Rotom or Scarf Magneton for it. So there is that to do it, but there's no like real. It takes a little bit more to get that going.
Yeah.
What's his Persimmon in?
C tier.
What C tier is Persimmon? Well, Machamp is in C tier and would have Bullet Punch.
Yeah, it's a good shout as well. Good for Trick Room as well.
Not bad.
I actually really love that idea. Good call.
Gmax works with Crit Kiss.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh,
I suppose that's something to think about, Gert. Don't be that person. Don't be a Crit Kiss fanatic. And you can even run Crit Escavalier. That's always fun. Scope Lens Drill Run and all that. X's all.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we move on to the Miami Heatran.
Yep.
Start us off.
Yeah, here's the thing. I actually think this team is, and I actually talked with Rex a lot the other night about some potential trades he could make. At the moment,
I know the trades. Guess
Yeah,
what?
you
He
said
spoke
you
to me
didn't like
about it too.
You said you didn't like them to him, but I tend to disagree. I
I
think
never said that. Never said that. But we'll get
Well,
into it.
sure.
Let's get into the actual the team and then the suggestions.
I think this is obviously a weather team, but it's lacking a weather setter. So, like, Zapdos, great in weather. You have Chlorophyll on Blossom. You have Heliolisk, who can fit into literally any weather team except for Hail. You have Jinx with dry skin. You have, Heatran does fine in sand and sun. You have Stoutland, who's good in sand. Like, there's just so much good here that's like good for weather. Yeah, at the moment, I don't think it's the best team ever, but it does have some pretty threatening stuff, right? Zapdos is incredibly threatening, and it pairs really well with Heatran as just a mon. You have Stoutland, who I think is just an excellent support. So, and Grimmsnarl as well, who's also really excellent support. So overall, I think like as a top heavy team, I think this is good right now. But I'm excited about a couple trades that I mentioned that I think will actually make this team just like super OP.
Yeah. To just point out some of the good stuff on this team from my point of view. At the moment, it's got a great mode with the Zapdos and Tornadus plus Grimmsnarl with Fake Tears, which I think is really valuable. Like you got two solid Airstream mons, which maybe you don't want to be bringing the to both all the time, but like it's still good. Quite fast as well. We know how good Zapdos can be. You used it last season. And having that Fake Tear support can really help Zapdos punch holes in teams. Both mons actually get decent coverage as well. They can both set Sun, which is really fun for mons like Heatran and Heliolisk. The other really cool thing is I think for Grimmsnarl is it really supports Heatran well. I think having Prankster's screens for Heatran. Heatran is one of these mons that has a 4x weakness, but it can survive those attacks from it because it's actually kind of bulky. And having those screen support really helps it. The other stuff I noticed from this team is that it's got weak ice and grass types. So trying to cover for Heatran's ground weakness is kind of difficult. Like you've got Blossom, Jinx, and Kingler. They're not the most offensive or pressuring mons for opposing ground types.
Right.
I don't think that's a major issue because you still have like two flying types on the team, which are good switch-ins and stuff. But as the team stands at the moment, you've also got Heliolisk and Lucario. So ground is still a pretty easy bring against the team, I think. It's either that's just a side note I noticed. Obviously, you've already mentioned about Stoutland, but like you would need sand, you need sun for some of the mons, you need rain for some of the mons, and I know you're going to go into this in a minute with one of your suggestions. I don't like the Lucario pick because if there's no real mode for it, it just seems a bit slapped on there.
Yeah.
I think you should probably drop Lucario for something a little bit more synergistic, maybe that's the word. Cofagrigus is another mon that it's a good mon, but it doesn't really do anything for this team other than stop Trick Room,
Which is fine. I mean, as long as you have something to do it, I suppose.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I think Cofagrigus could still be a good support. Like, there's obviously the sets like it's super bulky, Will-O-Wisp, Trick Room, counter enemies, and Heatran can be run under Trick Room in some situations as well. So,
Jinx also gets Trick Room.
It does. Jinx does get Trick Room, but does it get in prison? I don't think it does.
It does not.
Yeah, I noticed that. There was something really cool about the Jinx, and I can't remember. Oh, yeah, I won't say it because if it's something he told me about, he doesn't want me to reveal that tech, so that's fine. But no, the team's overall, I think it's got potential. As you say, it is a weather team without having the setters for it. And I understand that you're now going to suggest, if I'm not mistaken, trading Grimmsnarl for Klefki.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't disagree with it. I really don't disagree. But and this is the only trade I had a slight issue with, is that I don't like the idea of having your screen setup for Heatran also being weak to ground.
Yeah, so
That was my only gripe.
Yeah.
I'll let you take
Obviously,
it away.
I would assume you're also trading Lucario, which gets rid of a ground weakness, and you would pick up Hippowdon for that.
I do like the Hippowdon.
Yeah. And then as another trade, since you'd gain some points off dropping Grimmsnarl to Klefki, who I think is objectively better than Grimmsnarl in this team specifically, because not only do you get exactly what you get from Grimmsnarl for this team, which is screens, speed control with Thunder Wave, you get a less powerful fake tears in the form of Metal Sound, I think.
Metal Mist.
Metal Mist, whatever. But you also get the weathers, right? Grimmsnarl does not get 7-day Rain Dance, but Klefki does. And I think that's kind of what this team is like really, really wanting. And with that extra 10 points, you can upgrade that Kingler into a Poliwrath, which will cover the other weaknesses.
Is that an upgrade, though?
What?
Is that an upgrade, though? Is Poliwrath an upgrade?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, Kingler is aight, but like Poliwrath getting a fighting type on the team that you lost from Lucario, I think it's good. I think it's very good, personally. I mean,
it's kind of hard to get off G-Max Kingler's water move because it's so slow as it is.
Yeah. I think Poliwrath, it's a good mon, I think, personally.
I think it's faster.
There's other options, obviously, but I think just getting a water fighting type on the team, it's going to round it out. That's just me.
I don't disagree. Like, I just have I don't know what it is, but there's certain mons that I just dislike. I just don't think I'll ever like them. And Poliwrath is just one of those.
Well, I changed your mind on Talonflame. I'll change your mind on other ones as well.
Yeah, maybe. But no, I do agree with what you're saying. Like, I do think if you're going to go for weather, objectively, Klefki is the better prankster setter for this team.
Yes.
I do like the change of Lucario to Hippowdon as well. I really like that.
Yeah.
So.
And it's good under
Poliwrath. You can always pick something else, but Poliwrath
gives you another Trick Room mon.
Yes, exactly. That's why one of the reasons why I like it. It also enables after you Stoutland, so that's kind of fun.
Which Blossom also gets after you, by the way.
Yeah, it does after you with Chlorophyll.
Yep.
And it also gets Strength Sap.
Does it really? That's really strong.
Yeah. Blossom, I think if he gets a Sunsetter, could be a real disruptive force for this team.
Yeah.
Just imagine leaving Blossom and Klefki, though.
Yeah, another thing that I didn't notice until a little bit later is Heliolisk actually gets Electrify, which is a great move. Yep. Yeah. So it turns whoever it targets, their move becomes electric type. So that's going to be pretty sick, I think.
Better with Hippowdon. So I really like that. I think Hippowdon is one of the... I think Heliolisk, is one of the few sand abusers that pairs so well with Hippowdon because they don't share a fighting weakness and you can do the Electrify tech and stuff like that.
Same with Stoutland, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, so we've got it ranked at number 14 for myself. Masenko is number 9. Bryan is 14, and AJ is 11. Have you got anything else to add to this, AJ?
AJ?
Sorry, I was muted. Apologies.
Don't worry about it.
I didn't realise I was double muted. Yeah, so this team has some good stuff to begin with. I think with just some simple trades like you suggested, I think it can really shine. So yeah, like I think I ranked it like pretty average. What you just said there, just like 11. But I think with some trades, it can jump up that list very fast.
It could. Okay, so we're going to move on now to the Havertown Hoopers. A whole lot of hoopla.
Hoopla! Sounds like a lot of hoopla.
Oh god, that brought back
Sounds
memories.
like a lot of hoopla, if you ask me.
Okay. I'll start on this one, to be honest. Initial impressions are I like Ninetales with Leafeon as a different type of Sun mode.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But
You're supportive Sun mode with like yawns.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
unique, but it's different. It's pretty cool. And I like that about some drafts, especially with an A tier and a D, like it's a D tier Mon, so it's not too bad. Like they're good together, Ninetales and Leafeon, but it's kind of weird on the other side of this water core, like the water part of the fire water grass core. Like you've got Toxapex and the fishies, wishy washy. Which it's not. It doesn't. They don't. Ninetales doesn't really synergize that well with them. It's similar to when I've said, like in a rain mode, you want a supportive fire type. I think in a sun mode, you want a supportive water type. You know.
Right.
And Toxapex isn't okay. Toxapex isn't a water type by nature in an offensive capacity.
Yeah.
But Wishy Washy is. You've also got a Hail Setter in Aurorus, but you don't have a.
Not a Hail Beaver.
Yeah, I really like Aurorus. I think it could be really fun to use. I do think it's a bad mod though because it's got two really common weaknesses. It also shares these weaknesses with his Urshifu and Duraludon, the fighting. So it's a bit like, but I think it'd be really cool if you had something to go along with it, just to make it worthwhile. Otherwise, at the moment, it's just firing off refrigerated hyper beams, or which is possible. Maybe that's why he's picked up. He's not going for the hail setting. He's going for the refrigeration, which is fair. It's good.
Yeah,
reason.
Hyper Blaze, Hyper Beam.
Yeah.
Any of those would work.
Before I go any further, I have to address Duraludon. I love Duraludon. I think it pairs really well with Ninetales with Fate Tears.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it Gmax? By choice.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Like in every situation, Wormwind is better.
Yeah. Maybe they just didn't know, like that. Usually people take Duraludon regular form over the Gmax form. That's something, and maybe a newer person would know. I don't know how new this person is. So I would give them the benefit of the doubt and say, if I were to see Gmax Duraludon versus regular Duraludon, I'd probably pick Gmax form if I didn't know any better. Because it looks more powerful and it has a unique move and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, generally speaking, the regular form is better, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think it's one of the
you'd rather
few
lower
Gmaxes.
attack than lower PP by 3.
Yeah. That's number one. I like Silvally being able to fill in as a ground type for this team if it needed, or any type it needs to be, because this team does seem to lack a bit on type diversity. So I think that's pretty useful to have. Mimikyu obviously is one of the best Trick Room setters, and it can also do more than just set Trick Room. But I don't think the team really has ways to abuse the Trick Room. It's got Wishy Washy. I don't count Toxapex.
If we talk about bad Gmaxes, they kind of have it again with the Gmax Urshifu.
No,
I don't know. I think there's always a reason. There's a reason why in the ladder tours that you get Gmax versions and regular versions of the Urshifus.
Yeah, I think Gmax Urshifu is fine. I mean, being able to get through Max Guard is pretty solid.
Yeah,
agreed.
It's just I don't know. Maybe it's just the way that I play it. I just kind of value it more because if it maxes, it loses the priority. I mean, not priority, but the crit chance, the guaranteed crit chance. So I don't know. I guess I just value the crit chance over going through a max guard. Maybe that's just personal.
It doesn't. If you're maxing it, it doesn't make a difference.
Isn't it the dart move that gets changed?
Yeah, the dark move.
Yeah.
Dark move is Gmax. For Gmax is Gmax 1 blow, but it's not an automatic crit. It just goes through max guard. It's normal, whatever it's called, one strike. I don't know what it's called. I can't remember, but that's the guaranteed crit move.
Right. So
yeah,
you're
but you don't need to max it.
yeah.
I think it's, the regular dark move what lowers the death, right? So
Right.
I think considering Urshifu would be physical, I would think that was a straight upgrade personally. But I can see like if you get taking the water type, you may or may not want to set rain.
Yeah.
It depends on what you're doing entirely, doesn't it? Like it completely depends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the Urshifu G-Max is perfectly reasonable, to be honest. That's not where my issue is. My issue lies now that he's got an Urshifu with a Indeedee.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you don't always have to run Psychic Surge on Indeedee. It's fine. It's alright. Yeah, I don't particularly care about that too much. It's going to conflict with itself, obviously, but I think if you add a couple mons to this team, as I'm always looking to do, this team can actually come together really nicely for the most part. The ones I'm kind of looking at are some more of the faster side mons. So a mon that I think would be good here, he's got some ghost weakness going on. So something that I would not usually recommend, but seems actually kind of okay in this context, kind of like the shift tree almost, is I know you'll hate this one too. You're gonna groan and whine, but it's Unfezant. I think it's actually pretty decent here as
playing about Unpheasant as much as I would about Shiftry. Shiftry is bad. Unpheasant situational.
Unpleasant here seems good. You need a Tailwind user. A normal flying type seems good for the D tier. You're going to replace that Auroras with it, and I think that'll definitely boost up this team's utility a lot. Another trade that
remove the ground, some ground weakness a bit. Yeah.
Right, exactly that too. A good trade for the Wishy-Washy, in my opinion, is Slurpuff. You already have the terrain, so just add a little bit more fairy resistance, and that helps out with some of the other issues you were having in terms of type. And then a final one that I think would be really solid is just a straight upgrade from. I know Corsola is decent, but I actually think that Rotom here would be just a better upgrade as a ghost type. Get electric on the team. It's going to help with some of the flying weakness that you have from what I think Leafeon and Urshifu.
Yeah.
And then having Rotom on the team, and he's just a fast mon with like Will-O-Wisp and some decent special attack, and yeah, I mean it's just better in my opinion.
Yeah, it's possible.
So those three changes help out a little bit. And then of course you have Silvally, which is like going to be any type you can have, so that helps out too.
I really like the fantasy core though, Mimikyu and Duraludon. I know it's a 2-mon fantasy core, but it's pretty decent.
Yeah, I agree.
Something I really like, and it's a weird tech, and it's very situational, but you could technically run Corsola with Urshifu because if it's got its Wicked Blow, so it always crits. You could just keep strength sapping your own Urshifu to get health back on your Corsola and still crit through your attack drops.
Huh.
I know it's a weird and situational tech, but it's kind of cool.
I think that's like, yeah, that's big brain.
It's just something I noticed. It's like, yeah, well, if you guaranteed a crit, it's not bad. I kind of like Corsola. I think it'd be pretty interesting. He's got decent bulk on this team. Obviously, a little bit weak on the special side between Urshifu and Duraludon, but it's okay.
Yeah.
But we
So
have
just
the rankings.
Yeah, sorry, go for it.
It's fine. You are the only one who ranked it at 10, Masenko. The other three of us have ranked it at 15. I think it's just because I feel like it's difficult. It is difficult.
I think you guys saw Auroras, and I think you saw some other mons on the team, and you're like, I don't know about that. But I think this has a lot going for it, actually. Like, it's not the most impressive team I've ever seen for for any reason, but like it's got synergy for the most part.
There's
got
just not a
options.
lot of counter synergy, and I think that's where my issue lies.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit certainly, and I think there's some bad picks on there that need to be traded. But overall, like you have an Urshifu on the team, can't really rate it too low, right? I think it's Urshifu.
Yeah, I've never had an issue with Dark Urshifu. I don't think it's that
If
good.
it was the regular, if it was the regular Urshifu, I'd be okay with that. Just don't like Gmax. The
I
Gmax.
don't get why. It makes no difference. It's the same mon. If
I
it
just
maxes,
feel like
you're just changing the.
max. I don't see it. But
Well, you don't have to max it. You can still just get regular.
It doesn't
You
matter.
don't. Yeah.
I think, yeah, like this, it has potential. There's some synergy there, but emphasis on some. I also like, again, with another one of my comments before, like, where's the airstream come from?
Yeah.
Savali?
So
Does
valid.
Duraludon learn bounce? I don't
Nope.
think so.
No.
Urshifu is Airstream. It's Aerial Ace.
So,
you are right.
yeah,
It
like,
does lack a bit on the speed control side of things, which is what I think Masenko was saying before as well.
Yeah. Grab Unfezon. That's going to be a really nice pick for this.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Good match target.
Better than some of the. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Okay. I do like the Ninetales Duraludon though. I will admit, I do like that.
Yeah.
Moving on.
A lot of their threats are special attackers, so a Max Darkness would be better than a Max One Blow. Just saying.
We move on to the Porygons. Sorry, OC Frey, I have replaced your logo with mine, my version of it. But oh well. I like this team. I like the individual mons of the team more than maybe the team itself. Who wants to go?
I mean, I agree with you that all the mons on the team are like pretty valuable for what they're going for. Like, I dig it.
I think he's got one of the strongest fire, water, grass cores, if not the strongest. Ignore Vileplume. Like, Cinderace and Primarina are really strong mons. And Gorygeist is bulky.
Sure.
And he has the option to run any of the Gorygeist forms.
Yeah. And what I really like about the Gorygeist for this team is the fact that it gets the signature move. What's it called? Trick or Treat. Which really helps out mons like Obstagoon and Magnezone from the fighting weakness.
Right.
Which obviously isn't going to be a bring every week type of situation. Not like how you could do with like Speed Swap. But for certain matchups, it can definitely catch your opponent off guard.
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying Trick or Treat Magnezone to make it immune to fighting.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
First,
I thought you were saying Trick or Treat something else to make them not fighting type, and that just turns it into a not stab.
Sorry, I might have just misspoke. But yeah, I do think the Fire, Water, Grass core is really good. I think it's in the top 3 of the Fire, Water, Grass cores of the league. But unfortunately, unlike the cores of the Slowbros, it's not really the best fantasy core, if at all, because it is missing a dragon.
Yeah.
I do think one of the biggest issues with this team is that Max Quake is very spammable against the team.
Yes.
Yeah.
I understand that Cinderace isn't a fire type. It's not really a fire type, but it's so easy to just hit Jolteon with Max Quake, Magnezone with Max Quake. I don't think it needs 2 electric types. Lycanroc with Max Quake. You can hit Cinderace if you're fast enough with Max Quake. You've got a grass type that doesn't even resist it. You've got Max Quakes into Primarina so easily because if most Max Quakes are physical anyway, Primarina's lowest stat is defense, and you're just boosting your own special defense to take the hits better from the Primarina.
Yeah.
So I do think that is one downside to the team. I do think the double rock, the double electric, and double grass is a little bit weird.
Yeah, I just like, for me, I had a lot of, I know I ranked this lower than a lot of you guys. And the reason for that is because when I see the team, I don't feel like the least threatened by it. Like personally, I think there's like Cinderace doesn't have enough protection.
True.
You have, and so like that's not going to work out for it very well. You got the, yes, it has a, like the Mons individually are strong for the Fire Water Grass core, but there's not a whole lot of synergy between them. Like, and they're not really helping each other out in any way other than just being solid Pokemon that you're playing. Once, as you said, lots of earth, like ground spam. That's just gonna kill it. You got some like cheeky stuff you could do with Meowstic, and with Hitmontop. So that's fine.
Like they're solid.
Yeah, like they're good for the team. I think they're really good support mons, but like they're not really, like I don't see them really helping out anything specifically. You know, like there's like a very strong lack of synergy here for me. So I had a couple of suggestions to make.
I think before you get into suggestions,
Yeah.
when it comes to teams that have synergy, I think I unknowingly consider two different types. There's the obvious synergy where this mon helps that mon, that helps this mon, and that helps that. And then there seems to be like this underlying synergy where it's not as cut and dry, not as clear. And I feel like this team has that type where they are good mons. There might not be super clear synergy, but they don't really disrupt each other either, other than the repeating typings. So I think that's where I like the team, is that you could easily build a team with any of the mons and not have major issues with like, oh well, I can't bring this mon because I've got that mon, you know. Other than what I said, which is that repeating typing. You don't need two electric types. You don't need two physical rock types. You definitely don't need a Vileplume with a Gorygeist. I know he wants to consider doing stuff like skill swap with a Meowstic Prankster into like Vileplume and into some of the other mons, but that's just my opinion on it. Anyway, back to you with the trades.
Yeah. So one of the obvious traits there plays exactly what you were saying. I think you have a better mon than Vileplume for this, and I also did this once again, trying to neutralize any weaknesses that the team had outstanding. So even if it does have similar typings listed, I fixed it somehow. So one of the trades that I would make is you would obviously drop Vileplume at some point, but you'd also drop Jolteon and pick up Fungus. Fungus gets Spore, more accurate than Sleep Powder, and it's redirection for the Cinderace, which is really necessary in my opinion. So I like that better. I like that a lot better. Instead of Aerodactyl, I think Aerodactyl's fine, but that rock type is hurting you in a lot of ways. I would pick up Braviary for this team, which would actually be super strong in my opinion. Like Braviary on this team seems super sick, and I can't exactly describe why, but it just does.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah, Cinderace invites stuff like Intimidate, Charm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a final trade for the Vileplume, I might pick up Lantern. That was just helping out with typings. You could find some other stuff potentially, but having Lantern on the team helped out with that. You drop Jolteon, of course, for the Fungus in that case too. So I don't know. Get the extra water type helps a little bit. Water.
It's a water type that's potentially immune to either water or electric. He's got both water absorb and volt absorb.
Exactly.
So you can choose based on what the matchup is.
It just, the only issue with that is that it still invites the like max quakes.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, this for some reason I don't know how it ended up working this way, but it turns out that dropping Jolteon and doing everything that way, like I think he has enough resistances to ground here, technically. Technically, right? But yeah, I don't know how it worked out that way. Maybe he still does have a ground weakness, and I just couldn't think of the way. I don't remember it specifically,
Don't worry.
but yeah, that's just it seemed to work out that way.
Okay. So the way we've ranked it is I've ranked it as number 4. Masenko, you've ranked it as 15. Bryan's ranked it at 9, and AJ's ranked it at 4.
Yeah, I don't know why you guys ranked it at 4. I think there's much better teams here, personally.
I tell you, it's literally there's something about the team, the underlying side of things, and maybe I'm thinking
Like,
maybe a trade here and it could be great, but
I just
it was just
see
an
how you-
initial impression for me.
Yeah, I mean that's fair, but I just don't see how you rank this team like more than Brian's team, for instance. Like Brian's team's insane.
Well, Bryan's team, and wish he hadn't used Bryan's team as an example, but the thing I have issues with Bryan's is that sometimes it feels a little bit too passive. It takes a little bit too long to get set up. Wherefore, like this team, there's immediate pressure, and just from Cinderace and Primarina. Like I think Primarina all day is better than their Blastoise.
Really? Okay.
That's just my personal opinion.
Sure.
It's a little bit frailer. I agree. But at least here you've got is just similar to like that. Like there, you've got Jolteon with Volt Absorb to swap in, like how he has Thundurus to swap in for Blastoise. You've got a few grass types around to swap in for the grass types that aren't weak to poison, which can swap in for Primarina for the grass type weakness. You've got Magnezone and Hitmontop to swap in for the poison types. So there's still like good support for the Primarina. It's, as I say, it's just I don't know what it is. I like the team.
Sure.
And I hate Cinderace, and I still like the team.
Sure. I mean, I get it. Listen, I get it. You guys like the team. I just don't know if 4 is the number I expected for it. That's it. Top 4 is pretty high for me.
My scores was averaged out and it came out this high. I just think, I mean, even with the mons it has right now, there's so much like disruption potential. I mean, and mitigation. I mean, I know you're saying Cinderace lacks that support. You have Prankster screens, and you don't. Obviously that aggression is always there, but I think slow playing this team potentially. Obviously mitigating the opponent's threat with like, Charm from Jolteon, which is super quick. Hitmontop, Obstagoon, Meowstic can sort of pivot around and do what they need to do, and then you've got the threats of Primarina and Cinderace. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be a fun team to use. So that's why, and for me, it ranks high on those factors. So that's why I ranked it high.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we move on now to our final team. We're reaching the end.
Yes.
I can't pronounce that because I'm not American.
Milwaukee.
Thank you. I was just going to say, I probably would have said it right, but I was so worried I was going to say it wrong. Milwaukee. The Xerneas team. I think it's a solid team.
I actually really like it.
I'm kind of scared of this guy. I'm not going to lie.
A lot of interesting pieces that can do multiple things. Entei can be supportive. It can be special. It can be physical. Spectrier, even though not paired with the very common thing with Metagross, and I think that just has more to do with how the tiers were lined up, and I think that might just be more beneficial in general. That Lipard could potentially run Unburden or Prankster on this team.
Yep.
So I think at first glance, there's a lot to think about.
It kind of scares me because his support mons are really good for what he has. Like, yeah, Togepi isn't great, but Togepi is still going to allow Spectria to just start steamrolling. Lipard plus Spectria, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
You're nuking things with that combo.
Yeah.
Tapu Lele again, as you say. Yeah, Tapu Lele is really good with Spectre in my opinion as well, because it stops like sucker punches and stuff, which is obviously a weakness of Spectre's.
Yeah, and it works well with Unburdened Lipard. Like,
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
having Prankster is not always the best because you can't target dark types with it, right?
Mhm.
So like you give Lipard that speed boost, and suddenly, boom!
Basically got Prankster.
It's basically
Exactly.
got Prankster.
And that's what I really
So
like about that there.
First. It's going to go
Togepi
first.
Togepi with Belly Drum, Azumarill, or Diggersby.
sure.
That
Yeah.
can be that's still pretty threatening. Yes, the team has an overall poison weakness, but at the end of the day, it's poison. You know, it's not the most
Yeah,
dangerous of
poison
types.
If you're going to be okay with being weak to a type, you're okay with being weak to poison.
The Fire Water Grass core here is great. Rotom, yeah, okay. It's it can be weak to ice, blah 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 blah. I really like Rotom, Entei, and Azumarill. I think it's a really good Fire Water Grass core here. They're bulky enough whilst also having enough offensive pressure. And having a water type that is immune to grass as a potential, that's pretty good. You've got 2 Mons on the team which is immune to grass. Really helps Diggersby out a little bit.
Definitely.
Bouffalont, I think, is really underrated for like Trick Room modes, which I think there's a solid Trick Room mode here, or at least good Trick Room answers. And your answers are like Taunt Lipard or Copycat Lipard, Taunt Cincino. I think Cincino's great. Not just putting it out there.
Yeah.
It's even better in Series 10 in my opinion, but it's good. I don't know. There's not a lot I can really say that's bad about the team, other than the one thing I will say is that it's lacking a steel type.
Yes. That was going to be my comment. So I think a couple things for this team which could be solid is I really, like a lot of the Mons on here make sense. Like I love Togepi here. I love like Bouffalont. I love the Cinccino. Though I do think like other than with Belly Drum specifically, I don't really see the need for redirection on this team. You have enough like bulky, solid Mons who like are pretty offensive threats without needing it.
I see
per
it
se.
for Spectria.
Honestly,
It opens
kind
up
of.
I felt like last season when I ran Spectria, I couldn't do max Spectria and blast things because I didn't have ways to stop attacks hitting it. And I think
Right.
redirection really just allows Spectria just to go to town.
Well, that's totally fair, and I completely agree with that. Maybe you can instead drop Xatu for something. I think Xatu is not C tier; it's actually D tier, and the something got mixed up somewhere.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it comes out correct anyway. I think Togepi is the C tier for this team, and the other side would have the Xatu. But yeah. What I would consider is instead of Rotom Mo, same tier. I really like Sceptile for this team. The Unburden as well, with a lot of really cool opportunities for cool support stuff. I think Rotom's fine, but it really only gets that one grass move that lowers
Leaf Storm.
Leaf Storm. It's not the best for like for just what you want to do with it. Like Sceptile has a lot more versatility, and it fits well with all the crazy cool supportive stuff you could do with this team, right? So there's that. And then for a steel type, I was considering like picking up that really interesting Kling plus Diden combo. Kling seems to do pretty well on this team, and you have Trick Room. It's a steel type. If you do keep the Togepi somehow, if you like rearrange things properly, you do get that redirection for it. And Diden is pretty solid too for that. But you don't have to do Diden for that combo. I think you got really.
Kling could be good with yeah.
Kling's good.
Possible.
I think Kling is good here for sure.
So we've got ranked here. I've ranked it at number 6. I think it's a good team. I think it can be very deadly. I think I just undervalue some of the mons that are actually there. Like, I've just never been a big fan of Azumarill. I think Rotom Mow is good, but you're using 2 answers to water types in one mon. You've got. Have you ranked that at 7 or is that 1?
Oh yeah, they're my number 1. No, I'm just kidding.
That's 7. Yeah, Masenko had himself
Yeah.
at first. He's
Of
a
course,
very
yes.
noble, very noble draft league battler.
I do think some of the strongest points of this team. Entei's a solid mon. I'm not gonna. There's not really much to say about that. But Spectria, Lipard, Tapu Lele, and that's just those 3 alone are just really good.
The whole team is pretty solid, honestly.
Yeah,
like it's
it's
a well thought out team, with a lot of like. It could use some tweaks, and I think it's just good. Yeah, just good. Very good.
Probably do without Xatu, but at least Xatu gets Tailwind. So yeah. I've got it at 6. Masenko, you've got it at 7. Brian's at 8, and so is AJ. Have you got any final thoughts for this team, AJ?
I think it's got a lot of potential. I like the stuff it has already. I like also like Chinchino with 2 Sap Zipper mons. Can't it do Bullet Seed stuff?
Yeah, it doesn't work like that though, but it just activates off the first one.
Oh, it doesn't repeat activate.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
It's same as like Storm Drain and all that type of stuff.
That'd be sick.
I know.
Oh, cool. What? Nintendo, fix your game.
I know. It'd be so good if it did. It'd be just like an instant, +5. Wow.
I mean, you have beat up.
+5 Buffalet. Oof. That'd be brutal, man. Buffalet's pretty good. I think Buffalet could be good. Okay, so that concludes this very long draft review. We do have one last thing. We've tallied up all our scores that we gave each of the teams, and this was basically our combined draft ranking of all the teams post-draft. As you can see here, going in reverse order, we have got the Trenton Typhlosions at number 16 with an unfortunate unanimous 16th vote. We have the Havertown Hoopers at 15th. We have Lucian Flash with his Far Rock. I hate that name. The Tyrannotars at 14. We've got the MK Mimikyus at 13. The Miami Heatrons at 12. The Midland Marowaks at 11. The Crymych Coalossals. God, it's been a while since we've talked about that team now. At number 10. The Pogging Porygons, thanks to our high ratings, shot it all the way to the midway at number 9. South Croydon Soars at 8. Fear Xerneas, it's not Fear Xerneas, but I'm going to call it that now.
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee Xerneas is at number 7. The Pacific Slowbros at number 6, and we have a joint tied score for number 4, which is between the Eiscues and the Charlotte Beedrills. Do any of you have any objections to who should be at 5th and who should be at 4th now? We can do an unbiased vote by excluding Brian, have it 3, out of 3.
Yeah. Let me review Gert's team for a second again. I still think Brian's team is just very, very good. Maybe you don't think so, but I honestly think it's.
No, I don't think it's not good. I don't think it's not good.
One of the best, truly one of the best in this draft. Maybe I'm biased because I helped out with it, but I think there's just some stuff like everything on Brian's team works for it. There's some stuff on Gert's team that I think are a little bit like kind of tacked on, like kind of the Pissimian, kind of the Starmie, right?
I quite like the Pissimian, to be honest.
I mean, it really. So, but I think everything on Brian's team just like works towards exactly what it's trying to do. Okay. So that's my vote. I think Brian's team is better right now.
I'd go for Gurt, but that's just my playstyle and which team I'd like to take over. I think if I had the chance.
That gives me the tiebreaker. I would say personal preference, mine would be Gertz as well.
Sure.
But that is a very close call. We move on to the Somerville Scraggies at number 3. And
Well, I
then
know that I'll be asking Masenko for help during this draft league, and I will not be asking you, Matrix, or you, AJ, for any help this season. In fact, I no longer stand you, Matrix. I'm not standing you this season.
that is it. Harsh. But we move on from number 3 now, Somerville Scraggies, and we come to another tie, which is the Drowsy Drekazals and the Dark Lord Greninjas tied for the top spot of our draft review. I think, to be fair, no matter which way you look at it, it's always going to be a little bit biased between these two splits as well, because if Masenko helped Bryan and Dark Lord has helped Greninjas. So, what do we think, Bryan and AJ? Who do you think should take the top spot?
I'd put Masenko at 1 and Dark Lords at 2, because that's actually how I have the teams ranked in my personal ranking.
That's fair. That's fair. AJ, any preference?
Yeah, but I'm slightly biased because I helped draft Dark Lord's team. I love them both. I could not vote one way or the other. Like, I do just love them both. I think they both deserve top spot. I know for OCD reasons we're not going to get that.
Abstaining your vote.
Yeah, just leave it to someone else. Someone else's problem.
Okay. All right. Well, for the benefit of the not a tied vote, I'll let the Drowsy Drakazals take the top spot for our definitive
Pre-trade.
post-draft pre-trade draft analysis.
The only reason, honestly, I would not put Dark Lord's team ahead of mine is because of the sticking out Scraggy and the Credilli trade. Like, if once he makes that trade, he gets Charizard on the team. Yeah, I'll throw him in first place. I don't think my team is better than that personally. No, I think if post-trade, Dark Lord's definitely gonna probably take number 1 for me. Though I do think that my team is close second.
Okay, well, I think we're getting basically that's the end of that's everything I've got. I've got no more slides. We've come to the end of this. Hopefully, some of you have stuck it out doing whatever you want to do. Maybe you're driving, maybe you're working. You just got this listening to the background. If you've listened all the way, thank you for joining us as we went in depth over this post-draft analysis. It's been really fun. Looking forward to this season. The season starts on the 27th of this month, which is September, isn't it? Yeah. So that's when week 1 begins, and we should be hopefully doing at least 2, maybe 3 of us on the podcast show, whatever you want to call it, on the reviewing each week's games. So hopefully we can provide you with some content.
Hell yeah.
We are Johto division is very much a cooperative division. I'm looking forward to all the looking forward to the battles, and I'm looking forward to all of the players potentially coming onto the show at some point.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to say. We'll have some guest people come on and give their thoughts and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll cooperate to make sure that we split the load of filming these between us.
Yes.
Anyway.
Well, thank you all for joining me today. Thanks, AJ. Thanks, Bryan. Thank you, Masenko. And
Thanks so much.
I will see you guys next time.
Bye.
See ya.
Thanks for watching.